At Carrabba's Italian Grill, people always seem to be saying, "Wow!" Especially now, because you can take home our delicious sauté-to-order spaghetti and homemade meatballs made with our family recipe absolutely free.
Homemade spaghetti and meatballs for free? Just wow!
Order one of your Carrabba's favorites, Chicken Brian, Chicken Marsala, Polo Rosa Maria, or our Chicken Trio, and take home made-from-scratch spaghetti and meatballs.
For tomorrow night's dinner, free? Wow!
Hurry into Carrabba's today and get free spaghetti and meatballs for tomorrow. Limited time only, now through May 6th. Carrabba's, Italian worth talking about.
My hip-hop will pop this shot. My hip-hop pop this shot. My hip-hop will pop this shot. Pop this shot.
Really Simon, yeah, you know me. Quote, working from home, unquote. It's easy. Turn a 2-day weekend into 3. See, we be within reach. TXT to MST to BB.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for once again tuning into the Screaming Boy podcast. This is episode number 28. Number 28 in season 2, or that we are in, or whatever season we're in. We're sporadic, so we do our own thing, so don't judge us. Tonight, we have, or today, or whenever you're listening to this, if you're listening to it live, I'm very surprised because I did little to no advertisement for this, so if you stumble across it, welcome. But if you're listening to this on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, whatever, thank you once again for, like I said, for tuning in and giving us a listen. But today we're going to be talking about a little bit about Toys R Us, and a staple of every 80s and 90s child of their childhood. You remember the jingle. You remember the commercials. You remember at Christmas time, Jeffrey in his Santa hat. I think he had that, but I was a Hills kid, so Hills is where the toys are. That's why Anyway, so I've got a panel of experts in the toy area, the 80s, 80s, 90s, and toys. With us, as always, is I'm going to do a Radio Legend Broadcasting introduction for you all, and with a little bit of Ronnie mixed in here. The disapproving dad, the ever-present Jesse Quincy Starcher.
Quincy. Just call me Q, Jesse Q Starcher. That's
Jesse
right.
Q Starcher.
There we go. No,
how you doing tonight?
I am excited to be here and discuss this sad event that is about to befall our. It's up for debate, and I think that's why we're here. So we will be discussing one of the few toy stores that I've had the chance to visit in the past few years, and that's Toys R Us and its imminent demise. So thank you for having me, sir. I appreciate it.
Always. Next on the list is an expert in his own right, and a guest and a favorite guest on here. Always welcome, and that is totally 80s Patrick Percival Mullen.
And that's the emphasis on Percival. Thank you very much, Ronnie.
You are welcome. How you doing tonight, Pat?
I'm doing excellent, sir. I appreciate it. Happy Passover and Easter season to y'all.
You as well, sir. All right, speaking of Passover.
Yes, he got it.
the third member on our panel, the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, the patriarch of the Radio Legend Broadcasting Network. And he is the mandated reporter, and frankly, he is mortified. His name is Mark. I can't think of a really cool middle name. Radulich Esquire.
There we go.
There we go.
It is a rare joy that I get to be on the Screaming Boy podcast and take off my host hat and get just to be a panel member. So I'm looking forward to discussing our memories and the rise and fall of a great marketplace institution, Toys R Us. Thank you for having me, Ronnie.
Absolutely. As always. I mean, like always, anytime you want to come on, you're more than welcome, all of you. Jesse doesn't have a choice.
I'm only coming on when I get to pick the topic. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Well, you and I, our minds became one for a moment, and it was terrifying. But both of us wanted to do a show on Toys R Us. I was sitting there thinking, I really want to do a Toys R Us show, just talking about how, my childhood memories of it and everything and how it's going out of business. One of my best friends, from back in the day, who actually lives up near you, Jesse, he was a manager at Toys R Us, overnight manager. He knew Chris Parsons before he was Magnum CK.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, the whole nine. He worked for Toys R Us. He started as a stocker and worked his way up to a manager, and he worked there for years. And he had less than favorable things to say about some of the things that were going on. He actually left and got a new career before the closing and everything. But let's talk about this. The one of the titans of the toy. Pardon me, if you're listening and I sound like crap, it's because I do sound like crap. I have allergies that just want to murder me. And so we're dealing with that. So I feel worse than what I sound to you. So I'm sucking it up. So you have to as well. But we're talking about one of the titans of the toy selling industry. We're talking about the mecca of all children's, childhood fantasy. You go and you open it up and it's a toy. It's a store dedicated to nothing but toys. It's a standalone. It's not your toy store that you find in the mall. It's not the toy section of Walmart. It's anything like that. It is a standalone building filled from floor to ceiling of nothing but toys for you. That's what it felt like for me. So, this was wonderful. And it was one of those things where, even as a teenager and on, I still went to Toys R Us. I still go to Toys R Us today. I bought my first Nintendo 64 at Toys R Us on my own. And so it was one of those things where Toys R Us has been a big part of, I dare say, just about everybody's life. If you grew up in the U.S. in the 80s and 90s. So we're going to talk a little bit. Jesse, what was your experience with Toys R Us growing up?
Well, I'm glad you shot it to me first because there's really few and far between memories personally. Our Toys R Us was located at the mall, and I think last time we got together, we were discussing the mall and arcades.
Yeah.
So
Arcade. Yep.
I talked about how it was rare that my parents took me to the mall. Well, Toys R Us was one of those rarities as well. It was probably, I don't honestly know that
was it in the mall or was it
right across from the mall.
Okay.
So I'm talking same parking lot practically. And I don't think our Toys R Us got there until maybe the mid 90s.
Wow.
I don't remember it being there before then. So I don't think I ever stepped foot in a Toys R Us until I was actually able to drive.
Nice.
So I'm a late bloomer when it comes to this, and I'm certainly the last person that's going to have the most lasting memories of the store itself. So the last time, or I should say the first time I remember going in there was hanging out with Golden Age Dave. Now, Golden Age Dave had a 64 as well, and we needed to find a Nintendo 64 controller. Now, this was right, if not shortly after they got released. And if you remember the 64s, I think they came with one controller.
Yep.
But we had 4 control ports, and he had just
biggest tease in the world.
Oh, dude, he bought Mario Kart, and we would go into the dorm room, and he's playing it by himself because he has one controller.
Yeah.
I'm like, son, we've got to do something to fix this. So we ended up going down. We was probably watching a WCW pay-per-view because that was the very few times that Golden Age Dave got down to Marietta. But we were over in Parkersburg hanging out at the mall. I was like, we were looking for a controller. Could not find one. Couldn't find one anywhere. And Dave's like, well, there's a Toys R Us. And I'm like, dude, if we can't find it over here, it's not going to be at Toys R Us.
Right.
Lo and behold, was I incorrect? So we got in there, and sure enough, we found a Nintendo 64 controller, and of course, was playing the 64. Our education was forever even more stunted as we got Nintendo's. Let's see, what was it? WCW No Mercy.
WCW NWO.
Oh man,
yeah, and played the absolute
WWF No Mercy.
WWF No Mercy, WCW NWO Revenge, and I can't remember what the other ones. But WWF No Mercy was the one that really kind of solidified things to where we were just on that nonstop Mario Kart. But anyway, it was amazing to go into the Toys R Us and see just. It felt like a huge play place. There was toys. Clearly, that's the name of the game. Toys left to right, up and down. Shelves stocked clear to the ceiling with toys and stuff you never even thought you would have seen or heard of. And that was the place to go. I think the first ever time I stepped foot in a Toys R Us was in Columbus. My mom had a sister. So it'd be my aunt. My aunt lived in Columbus, and we went up there for. Sometimes we'd spend like Christmas up there or something.
Sure.
So we'd go up there, and there was a Toys R Us, and it was a rare thing where they took me into a toy store because they probably knew what they were getting into.
Right.
When you walk into a toy store as a kid, I mean, I dread going somewhere with my own children. I'm sure my parents did the same thing. They're like, I don't even want to pull out the pocketbook or pretend I even have money walking into this place.
Right.
But yeah, I'll leave it at that. Those are really my core memories of Toys R Us. I never really had the opportunity to go to the store a whole lot. So, but
cool. I mean, we're all kids, no matter what.
Yeah.
So. The memories of Toys R Us are gonna last no matter what, whether no matter what age you are. That, and you having kids too, you can make some good memories with Toys R Us there. So I'm going to shoot it over to Pat. Pat, what was your first experience with Toys R Us? What was it like?
My first clearly remembered experience in Toys R Us would be probably sometime around 1989, 1990. It was like a birthday, and I'd gotten, you get the cards from relatives and such, and my parents were like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to go to Toys R Us. So I was in awe because I had always gone to the little local neighborhood toy stores we had and stuff like that. Yeah. And, you have all the toys in one aisle, basically. But this was an entire store of nothing but toys. Yep. So I would go in, and there was legitimately an aisle full of Hasbro WWF toys. There was an aisle full of Toy Biz Marvel toys. There was an aisle full of Kenner DC Comics toys. On top of that, there were rows and rows of bicycles.
Yep.
And am I alone? Am I the only one who learned how to ride a bicycle by riding it in Toys R Us?
Maybe. I didn't learn in the store, but I do remember riding them in the store and getting into a lot of trouble.
Well, I'm absolutely positive that somebody listening to this show somewhere learned how to ride a bike in the aisles of Toys R Us.
I have no doubt about that, yeah.
But yeah, I just remember being so in awe that there were, and if you didn't have an aisle, you had an end cap of Masters of the Universe, the new one where He-Man had a ponytail.
That was the bad one.
The one in space, yeah. Or you had when toys were getting clearanced out, they had an end cap of them. So when they stopped showing Thundercats, they had all the Thundercats stuff on an end cap on clearance, and I just remember, I don't care what was going on. All I ever wanted to do was be there and just be consumed by this.
Yep.
So, my first time, I was just in awe of everything there. And I had a fairly large Toys R Us as my local Toys R Us. It was in a location in Brooklyn called Caesars Bay, which was a huge shopping center where they also opened the first Kids R Us in that location. So Toys R Us was there, Kids R Us was there. There was Modell's. There was like a whole ton of stuff there.
Hey, Pat.
Yeah.
Gotta go to Moe's. Gotta go to Modell's. Gotta go to Moe's. Modell's.
Gotta go to Moe's. Yeah, there was all that stuff in this one centralized area.
We're left out.
I don't have a clue what you're talking about.
I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Modell's is one of the last standing sporting goods stores that's left, and it's real big here in the upper northeast of the U.S.
That was their jingle.
Yeah.
I wanted to know if Pat. I wanted to see if Pat remembered it.
I figured it was their jingle because you were saying.
We were hoping.
I didn't think you made that up on the spot.
I decided to start singing something random all of a sudden.
Yeah, I was gonna be really impressed if you did make it up on the spot. I was like, wow.
Hey, Pat, let the bodies hit the floor. Come on, sing with me. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, Jonas, this man died in his own vomit. Let's dance.
Aww.
That's what happened.
Yeah, right, we're talking about toys and kids and drowning in vomit.
Yeah, this whole section's getting edited out.
But then besides that location, the other closest location to me was what they called the flagship store in Times Square. And the flagship store in Times Square in Manhattan and New York was unbelievable when they opened it. And I first went there when I was like 12 or 13, the big store, but they had like a full-on like wheel, like a Ferris wheel in there. They had Jurassic Park set up. For girls, they had a life-size Barbie house. Like, it was insane, the money they put into that place.
The T-Rex.
They had a live T-Rex robot, which was crazy. And that was the first store where they had, to my knowledge, the video game demos that you could play, which also, during Christmas season of 2001, made me violently ill, but that's another story.
Yeah, okay. See, I went to the flagship store in my 20s, late 20s, and it was still like I was a little kid. You know, I wanted to ride the Ferris wheel, but yeah, I ain't getting on that thing for multiple reasons. And you know, the T-Rex, it scared the crap out of me, but I was smiling the entire time because that thing comes down on you don't even realize it. It was amazing. And then, you know, the whole, I mean, like, the way that they have everything set up is just like, it's like Disneyland or Disney World. Everything has their own section. You've never seen as many G.I. Joes as they had at the end. Transformers, Jurassic Park, Barbie. You know, that's the thing about Toys R Us. Toys R Us is one of the last toy stores or toy. Whoa. Right on.
The fan's back on.
Yeah.
All right, is it off now?
Yeah, it's off.
Are you being contacted by somebody from Tron?
Oh, one can only hope.
It'd be amazing.
Holy shit. Tell Master Control to talk to you when the podcast is over.
Between Ronnie's random robot interludes and the fan going on and off, I don't know, man.
Robot interludes.
Oh my goodness. So, but anyway, okay, Mark.
Sir,
tell us your Toys R Us experiences as a child.
Okay, but promise you'll come back to me because I have Toys R Us experiences as an adult I need to talk about.
Absolutely.
All right. So as a kid, there are two. One, to bribe me to do my schoolwork and to come home with report cards that were appropriate, that met the expectation of my parents, which was basically I had to get all A's and B's, or I was going to get punished. But the reward for making all A's and B's in my report card when I was in elementary school was a trip to Toys R Us, because we didn't, believe it or not, we did not have a tremendous amount of money when I was a kid.
Mm.
I'm sure I'm gonna. As I'm starting to talk about this, I'm just thinking, Pat's like, oh, please don't say you were poor compared to me. I'm gonna come down to Tampa and kick you squaw in the balls.
Not compared to me. I'm just saying, you were a kid of a certain religious background in a certain location. That would imply that
all of us
wasn't
poor
exactly
kids on Long Island.
I'm just saying it didn't imply best of times, worst of times.
I was born a poor black boy in the south side of Chicago.
Oh, my goodness.
But look, like I said, my parents were not into, believe it or not, folks, my parents were not into spoiling me. And so toys were a rare, special thing. And my dad's thing was, if you do good on your report card, I will take you to Toys R Us and you will get one moderately priced toy. And I was obsessed with Transformers.
Oh, yeah.
Like, like if we were on a different Screaming Boy podcast, we could talk about franchises of the 80s and rank them, as our personal best. I would say number one for me was always Transformers, except for Cup, because nobody likes Cup.
No.
Listen,
fighting
on my show.
That being said, to go, I really was motivated to do well in school at that age because I knew that trip would come and I would get into the Transformer, and I used to love walking down those warehouse aisles, looking at the great collection of various toys and trying to find that one toy, somewhere in the back, the one that nobody else has. I was always looking for something, there was always a million Optimus Primes, but there was only one Hound on the shelf.
Yeah.
That's the one I wanted.
That was the Jeep, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the Jeep.
Oh, I got a story.
Like 2 episodes of the old show, by the way. Like I used to hold my Hound figure and watch Transformers and wait for Hound to show up, and it was always Jazz. Jazz was in every episode. Hound 2.
You gotta get Scatman Crothers on there, brother.
Exactly. But the other thing I remember now, this is if you'll remember when the special edition Star Wars movies came out, and Han didn't shoot first, and we all cried. They put out a new line of Star Wars action figures.
Yes, they did.
Me and my buddy went about collecting one of each action figure, and we learned a lot about toy distribution and production because we would always go to the Toys R Us. Now, my Toys R Us was across the street from the Sunrise Mall in Massapequa, Long Island.
Nice.
I know it.
That was my Toys R Us. And we would head down there. It was, of course, the other reason being was it was right next door to the Tower Records. Rest in peace. So we would make a trip out of it. And we were starting to talk to the Toys R Us people because, why is it we can find 106 Princess Leia's and 200 Han and Luke's, but we can't find, Greedo or somebody. We couldn't find these rare figures. And they're like, you got to get here Tuesday morning when the store opens.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's when the collectors showed up and snatched the hard-to-find figures. We're like, oh, okay, And I remember my friend was like, I'm there. And I'm like, I have to work. Fuck this game. And that was the end of my collecting Star Wars figures. But I vividly remember those trips to Toys R Us, trying to find rare figures.
I heard just real quick. I heard a great story about a guy who worked at Toys R Us, and a couple of their friends were Ronnie. You're going to love this. They would bring in the pops, and there was always the guys that were coming after the chase figures. I think is what he called them.
Yep.
So as they're unloading whatever onto the shelves, they realize that one of the things that they're unloading is a chase figure. So they take it, and the night before, these chase figures are getting unloaded and the guys are going to show up the next morning. Then they go in there and buy the chase figure and then super glue it to the ground in the middle of the aisle.
Fantastic.
Oh, my gosh. The pop collector in me wants to scream, but that is brilliant.
I guess they open up the doors and these guys hang back and watch, and this guy, turns the aisle and sees it sitting there like the Holy Grail, takes off running to go grab it, and of course summarily rips the box in half.
Oh no. That makes me want to vomit.
I remember going through that collector phase and just hearing about all the shady tricks. Serious collectors would come into Toys R Us, find the rare items and then hide them in the Barbies and shit like that, where nobody, where no boy was going to go look.
Oh yeah.
That
I can do that now with Pops.
Great.
I'm the guy that all the collectors hated because I'm the guy who would somehow find that super rare toy that everybody wanted, and I just open it and play with it.
Oh yeah.
Here's my legitimate collector story. So around 98, I want to say, was when they released the first ever Harley Quinn figure, and it was from the Batman animated series line. So you would get it in the store at a retail price of $6.99 or whatever, and it had a collector value of $25 right off the bat, when it was first released. So I'm in the store. I'm in Toys R Us out here and in Jersey and Hazlitt, and I see this figure on the shelf, and I'm like, oh, Wizard was just talking about this. Yeah, why not? So I buy it, and it's the only one up there, whatever. A grown man who was got to be somewhere between 35, 45, is freaking out that I got this figure and pleading with me to give it to him. Saying that I don't understand what I'm doing. And I said, sir, I've seen every episode of this cartoon show, and I've been an avid Batman reader since I could read. I full well understand what I'm doing with this, and as soon as I get home, she's going to have Robin kidnapped, and Batman is going to have to come to the rescue, sir.
Yes.
Eat it, old man.
Well, collecting, I collect. I don't collect a whole lot other than Pops right now. And speaking of Toys R Us, there is one. This is like the holy grail for people right now. They've released a special edition flocked, meaning it has fur on it, fake fur, like the Moss Man, kind of deal going on. Jeffrey the Giraffe.
Oh wow!
Exclusive only to Toys R Us. I went into Toys R Us the other day just looking to see what was up, and I thought, well, we'll get into that later. And I asked the guy, I was like, I'm just here, looking at Pops and different things, and he goes, yeah. So we got a few left, stuff like that. I was like, yeah, you got very little left. We were laughing. I said, on the 25th, they're supposed to be releasing this Jeffrey the Giraffe Pop. And I said, is there any chance you might be getting a few of those in? And he looked at me and he just laughed. He's like, not a chance, dude. I was like, really? He said, yeah, not a chance. I'm telling you, people on here buy 4 and 5 of them at a time and immediately post them for $50 to $75.
Yeah, I'm on eBay right now. I'm looking at the prices. They're at 75, 70. Yep. So
immediately.
Yep.
And so I understand. I just want one. I don't care about the price of that one. I really don't.
You just want something to hang on to from your childhood.
Exactly. Right. That's exactly right. This is something that, I got a few Pops, and I think that if I grew up going into this store and this was a special release item, I would really want to get a hold of it as well,
Yeah.
So I kind of understand the want for that, but
is it wrong that I'm hearing Richard Marx in my head singing "Hold On to the Nights"?
No,
not at all, sir.
Never wrong that you hear that in your head.
I think it's wrong you're not singing it right now.
Right.
I know you said Richard Marx, but all I can think of is "Never Gonna Give You Up." Never gonna let down.
Damn it! It's Rick Astley, Marx. Completely different.
I know it's completely different, but it's what jumped in my head, sir.
Mark just rickrolled you. But yeah, I've almost gotten to physical altercations over these Pops. I'm like, dude, it's not that serious. Back up. And it's like, if you like this one dude, off topic, FYE had these special edition Pennywise the Clown Pops with the teeth bared and all that from the new It movie. Now, I'm a big fan of the old It movie and the new It movie. The old one with Tim Curry was honestly what started my fear of clowns when I was a kid.
Uh-oh.
What got me over that was watching again and realizing how ridiculous of a movie it was. Still wonderful. Tim Curry was amazing, but it was just a terrible movie. It was made for TV. So I got to see the new one, and I loved it because it reminded me of the 80s. I mean, it was Stranger Things. It was, the whole thing. And one of the kids from Stranger Things was in it. So I was at FYE, and I was like, I'm going to see if they've got this, because FYE is another terrible company. And I say that.
They're gone, right?
No, they're still kicking.
Still around. They went out of business here in our mall. So
I think there's one left in Jersey, maybe two.
There's one left in Greensboro. One, a couple of them kicking around.
This is that's one of those companies where I was just like, good riddance.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Terrible customer service. So they kind of screwed me out of pre-ordering this one. So I went on a whim, and I found two of them in the same day. And I was like, oh, sweet. So I grabbed them both. And I was like, this one I can give to a friend who's been looking for it, or if he's already got one, I'll just pop it on eBay and sell it, whatever. I'll give it away, whatever. Not a big deal. It's worth like $30 now. And so if I can make a couple bucks off of it, that's fine. If not, my friend will give me what I paid for it, and we'll call it even. So this guy was looking for the same one, and I had both of them in my hand. And FYE doesn't like to organize anything at all.
Yeah.
So they were all strewn out. So I was helping him look for them. And then I realized, oh, crap, I got two of them in my hand. It didn't hurt me a bit to give that other one to that guy. And he was, like, honestly shocked. He's like, oh, my gosh, thank you so much. It's like, for what, dude? I don't need both of these. It's a toy. It's a figure. So that's kind of like where I am with collecting stuff. I started a little bit of collecting a little bit of Transformers that I couldn't get when I was a kid. Now that I have a job that I can actually spend a little bit of money, they're just lining my bookshelf in my office. And so it's just one of those things where I'm not willing to pay $40, $50, $60 for something. But, if it's something special, I may. And I'm not going to fight somebody over it. And I think gluing one of them to the floor is hysterical. Even though I collect them, and inside I kind of want to nerd rage on them. You don't understand what you're doing.
Well, dude, if somebody did that with Spider-Man 129 or something, like if I ran, oh my gosh, there it is, and you go and grab it, and the whole cover comes off the comic and rips in half. I mean, I would fall to the ground.
I know you would be in tears and it would be horrible. But I would hope that I would be right there to laugh my ass off at that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like, again, like when they released the Rocky toy line in like 2006 or so, when the movie Rocky Balboa came out, those were like figures I was anticipating buying, a couple of them, because I thought I was always a fan. So I would go into Toys R Us to pick up those. And I looked at one of the figures and I laughed at it because I was like, why would you ever do this?
Yeah.
Do you know what figure it was?
The meat. It was the meat, wasn't it?
It was absolutely the meat. And it was like, that was like the cheapest one. It was like, I think all the regular figures were retailing somewhere around like $12.99. The meat was like $6.99.
Yes.
Go on Amazon and look at how much that meat costs today.
It's probably like close to $100 now.
Amazon's listing it as $54.99 right now.
For action figure of meat. Perfect.
The meat.
Work the meat. But Ronnie, I know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Pat.
No, go ahead, Mark. I was going to move on to something else, but go ahead.
I was going to say, I know I tease Ronnie all the time about collecting pops, but my daughter's got two of them. She's got an Alice in Wonderland pop, and she's got a Poison Ivy one. And
are they out of the box?
She's 7, so figure it out.
Oh, you son of a gun.
No, I've got 3 of them out of the box sitting on my desk at work.
Dude, she's a kid. They're figures. She plays with them.
I own one pop, and it's out of the box, and it's Macho Man Randy Savage.
Nice.
That sits on my desk.
Oh, yeah.
But, okay. Well, before we get super off track, which we already are.
Yeah, but it's fun.
There's 2 Toys R Us specific things I really want to bring up because we have to talk about them. One would be the Wish book.
Now, that was more of a Sears thing, wasn't it?
No. Toys R Us had the Wish book.
Huh.
Are we talking like a service merchandise? Are we talking like a service merchandise catalog, or because that's what I remember as a kid?
It was. I was watching a few things today, and they were talking about that. That was, and Ronnie, it might be one of those things where we just didn't see it.
Yeah, I didn't have it
because we didn't have one in our area or close enough to our area anyway. We're doing a podcast here, if you don't mind. I'll be back.
Nice. I just remember this. I just remember the Sears wish book. I don't remember the Toys R Us one.
Oh no, Mark, do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Yeah, it was basically like a 50 to 60 page catalog that you would get in the mail, not addressed to you personally, but like, resident of whatever. And it was 50.
Oh, resident had Ronnie Adams written all over it.
Yeah, I figured. But it was 50 to 60 pages of stuff that they had and stuff that was coming for the Christmas season.
I could almost guarantee that if we had that sent to the house, it was. So like I said, my problem is the Sears catalog and the service merchandise one were the ones that I remember vividly looking through, like spending hours looking through these catalogs. And I can remember like my excitement of, turning each page, like, oh, what new toy is going to be on the next page? How cool they're going to look. Hang on. And then like you get to the sporting goods section or the like men's clothes. You're like, I've run out of nude pictures in the porn. But, it's so funny because like I watch my daughter now like flip through like the American Girl catalog with the same amount of enthusiasm and intensity. I mean, she looks at that American Girl catalog like she's studying for the SATs.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Well, like the book though, like the best part of the book was that was at one point in time your only resource to see the new stuff that was coming from the toy lines you already liked. Like this would show you what like the Stratos from Masters of the Universe toy would look like before you ever even knew it was coming out.
Yeah.
Or it would show you the new line of wrestlers that were coming out from LJN or Hasbro before you even knew. Or like if there was like a play set, it would show you the play set. It would show you new bikes that were coming in. It was unbelievable.
I would say that one of our highest rated videos, Ronnie, when we were starting to do some of the stuff on Google Hangouts and YouTube and source material, was one where me, you, and Justin and the guy from our good buddy, help me out here. Why would I forget his name because I'm put on the spot? But our good buddy from the toy thing that's on Facebook. Is that general enough?
Yeah, there you go. Are we talking about Dave's All-American Comics?
Yeah, Dave's All-American Toys and Comics. Anyway, one of the highest, most viewed videos was us just going through like 1980s wish books.
Yeah.
And that people love that stuff to this day, looking at those toys, flipping those pages and checking it out. There's a great website that's just dedicated straight to the Sears wish books. You can go back and pick any year and look at it page for page in PDF format, if I remember correctly. So check it out, ladies and gentlemen. It's a way to go back down the old nostalgia road there. What's up, Mark?
At Christmas time, I usually spend the entire Christmas day and the next day at my in-laws. We used to actually sleep over there because Christmas Day would start because even though my brother-in-law was in his 20s, he still acted like he was 7 years old. And we started Christmas morning at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, part of this is because my in-laws tend to spend thousands of dollars on Christmas, and it takes a few hours to dig through the piles of presents. It's ridiculous. But like I said, I spend the entire week, the entire couple of days at my in-laws, and one of the things that I have found that I still enjoy doing is now we don't really have catalogs anymore, the age we're living in, but we still have flyers. We still have the inserts in I'm going to say something you might not know what I'm talking about because it's becoming extinct, but the newspaper, the physical newspaper, my in-laws still get the Tampa Bay Times And in the Tampa Bay Times, there's an insert for like Walmart and Target or whatever. And I still flip through the toys. I still enjoy looking and seeing what toys are out there. Having kids, I'm interested to see what's there for them to play with and what they like to play with. And I don't know. I still get a rise out of just looking and seeing, what in the world, what's being made in the world. What do the kids play with now?
Well, yeah.
One of the highest paid, or I guess I should say one of the highest rated YouTube video or YouTubers out there is just some lady that opens up blind bags and looks at toys. And the reason that is because kids, and it's not news, it's not paper anymore. It's all watching it on their phones and checking out the new toys that way. But it's just looking at what's coming up toy-wise. It's still a very popular thing. It's just the method is different.
Oh God, those toy unboxing videos.
Yes,
first of all, the kids making them are making boom dollars.
Yeah,
and the kids watching them, it's unbelievable. They'll just watch. My daughter was into that for a while. Hours and hours of watching other people open toys. You ever just want to hit your kid? Like, not because they're being bad.
I want to hit your kids all the time.
I'm sure you do. They were like, I watched her like, this is what you're going to spend your time doing is watching unboxing other kids playing with toys. This makes me want to hit you.
Each one of those is a view, Mark Radlich, and you're helping. You're helping pay for that kid's college. Way to go! Nice job.
Just a heads up. Since I brought up the Rocky series, I decided to look at some of the figures. The Frank Stallone figure.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Is $100.
Whoa!
So good on you, Frank. You're finally worth something. The other thing, we're talking about wish books, but there was one other thing I wanted to bring up. Now, we live in the age of the gift card or the e-gift card.
Yep.
Before there was such a thing, you could go to Toys R Us and get what's called Jeffrey money.
Yes.
Yep.
Now,
funny money is
you guys
funny
might
money,
not,
as we say in the strip club world.
Yeah, you guys might not be familiar with this, having not really gone to Toys R Us all that much, but there was a thing called Jeffrey money, and basically what it was if you needed to get a gift for a kid or something, but you wanted to seem like you care and put some thought into it, you would go to Toys R Us and you would say, yes, hello, I'd like $50 worth of Jeffrey money. And you'd give them $50 at the customer service desk, and they would give you a $50 bill with a giraffe on it. And Toys R Us basically started the in-store currency brand that so many stores do now, where before there was gift cards or gift certificates, there was Jeffrey money.
That's good branding. I mean, when you put your you put your giraffe on a dollar bill, I mean, you can't beat that. That's good stuff. I mean, the kids are definitely going to be excited as soon as they see it's Jeffrey on a $50 bill or whatever. You know where you're going, and you know what you're getting, and you're
Jeffrey
excited.
Money in the air like you just don't care.
Make it rain.
And you know what the funniest part of Jeffrey money was that if you notice on one particular birthday or Christmas or what have you, that year, one year, you got a lot of Jeffrey money, and then you never got it again.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had the one relative that said, oh, yeah, I'm going to pick this up for him at Toys R Us. You'd have the other relative say, oh, yeah, can you do the same for me?
Yep.
And that was the end of it. So you'd get, 5 or 6 greeting cards with, like, each of them anywhere from, like, if you had a sucky relative, $10 Jeffrey dollars.
Right.
If you had an awesome relative, like $50 to $100 Jeffrey dollars in it.
Just as an aside, can we all agree that the one relative, usually an aunt or a great aunt, that gave you a bond for your birthday or for Christmas, you just wanted to kick down a flight of stairs?
Yeah, like, oh, yeah, this will be awesome when I'm 23. I'm 6. I can't process that.
I don't even know what this
process that. Oh, my gosh.
I remember getting a bond from the first time from my great aunt Pat and turning to my parents going, what the fuck is... I'm sorry. Damn it.
That's 2. I've
already been given a warning. That's why I'm censoring myself.
We've officially gone into rated R territory.
Not surprising.
All right. For the sake of editing, 3, 2, take. I remember turning to my parents and being, what in God's green earth is this? This looks like weird money, and they're like, "Here, we'll talk about it later. Don't
Yeah, right. Yeah.
don't be unappreciative."
It was the pink bunny or the pink bunny suit moment in Christmas, Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Yeah, except worse.
This will be great. I can't process this. I'm 6.
Yeah. And then, oh man, like forget if you like accidentally like spilled something on one or whatever. Oh, it was the end of the world. That was your college education going down the drain. Like that.
No more interest now.
That $25 bond you got when you were 6 now is worth $32 at $24. That's awesome. It went down.
My favorite thing was the explanation of, listen, I know this doesn't seem exciting for you now, when you're 6, but when this matures and you're able to cash it in your 20s, it's going to be worth a lot of money. And then, like, that day finally comes, and it isn't worth nearly as much as you were promised.
Yeah.
But you really are ready to just punch the nearest person you can find in the nose.
My grandpa did it in secret. He didn't tell us about it. He just did it. And then one day, after he passed away, my mom was like, "Man, you got all these bonds in here. You're like $100 here, $50 there," and I'm like, "Let's cash those beasts. I'm in college. I need some money."
Yep.
And so I was thankful for it then.
I didn't even get mine till after college. How bogus is that?
I was in college a little longer than most.
I was not.
Yeah, I was just like, I should have been a doctor with the years that I went. But yeah, I pulled a full on Tommy boy.
Yeah,
a lot of people go to school for 7 years. Yeah, they're called doctors. But yeah, Toys R Us, man, because I just remember. I remember all the other toy stores that were cool. You mentioned the local toy store. We had one toy store that it lasted a pretty good long time. Down in Chapmanville, West Virginia, a small town toy store. I remember getting $5 for doing some yard work when I was a little guy, and probably didn't do anything. Probably put, like some leaves in a wheelbarrow or something. And my dad gave me $5, and I was like, let's go down to the toy store, man. And he's like, all right, let's go. And I bought absolutely nothing because they were so expensive there. But I was looking at this, Batman, the Batmobile for the old school DC, superpowers,
Oh yeah.
thing. And it was like $20, and I was like, well, that's a lot of leaves. So we'll go with this little mask figure over here that doesn't do anything. But
4 points of articulation.
No points of articulation. But so I did, I got that. We had that toy store, and then you had KB Toys and a few other toy stores that were mostly in malls. And then, and then there was this one place that I never really went to in Huntington, because we never really went to Huntington, West Virginia when I was a kid. It was always Charleston. It was called Children's Palace.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it had the, it seemed like the place other than Toys R Us, because it had the castle, what's it called? The things on the end that you look off of them and throw lava onto people and stuff. I mean, boiling oil. I won't call them turrets, but they're not.
Trebuchets? I have no idea.
No,
Yeah,
it's the top of a castle.
Okay.
Anyway,
I know where you're at.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll go with that. But it was wooden. I found that out when they tore down Children's Palace. I was like, well, that's disappointing. And but that was pretty cool. But they had more, than you had like in New York. They did more of the FAO Schwartz thing.
Which Toys R Us eventually bought.
Yeah.
When FAO Schwartz was a thing, did you ever go there?
Yeah, and then later on when I was working in Manhattan, I actually worked around the corner from the FAO Schwartz store. But it was one of those things where, like, if you're ever in the city as a kid, like most of the times when we went to Manhattan as a kid, it was either because we were going to Madison Square Garden to see, like, the Knicks, the Rangers, or the WWF, or, like it was one of those things where, like, your cool older cousin wants to take you out, and you end up in Midtown, seeing the sights or whatever, and you end up going there. And you do the Robert Loggia, Tom Hanks on the piano.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, but I mean, I always thought FAO Schwartz was just a world-class disappointment because it looks amazing. It looks like you're going into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
Well,
it's this amazing place of wonderment. It has like 3 toys for sale. Right. It looks beautiful though.
It wasn't even that for me. It was just the toys they had. I didn't give a crap about. Like,
yeah.
I didn't want like a giant teddy bear that was 3 feet tall. I wanted, I wanted my Hasbros. I wanted my WWF, my superheroes. Like Thundercats.
I've seen more toys at Ollie's than what was sold here. Like, it would be like if there was a line of toys, they'd have like 3 of them, and that was it. But boy, was there a giant slide and a 10-foot tall teddy bear.
Yeah, like that was what like rich people who didn't know what to do with their money and had kids, like that's what those kids got. Like that was for them. Yeah. That wasn't for me. I was a simpleton who was just ready to book his wrestling federation with his toys and write his comic storylines and occasionally get like a catcher's mitt or something from there, whatever. I didn't want any of the crap in FAO Schwartz. I thought it was lame. All the FAO Schwartz was good for was doing the thing from Big when you did the piano with your feet. And a lot of times
all you're good for is a 5-minute scene in a movie.
Yeah, and they kick you out a lot of times if you tried it.
Yeah, dude, FAO Schwartz was definitely like a rich person's experience because like if you were just an average kid and you were thinking you were like that, but that's the thing. If you've never been to an FAO Schwartz before, and now you'll never have the chance to, but if you've never been to an FAO Schwartz, you just think like it's going to have toys you've never seen before, because again, it's like the high class Richie Rich toy store, and it really does. It looks beautiful. It's like a castle on a cloud. And then, like, when you start to look at the actual toys they have, you're like, well, this is a huge rip. And now I'm being jostled by old Jewish women in furs. This sucks. I'll go back to my warehouse. Thank you.
Honestly, I piss on FAO Schwartz.
I don't want wooden soldiers and stuff like that. I want G.I. Joe with the guns and the kung fu grip. I want. Dude, like,
they didn't even have, like, regular stuff. Like, they didn't have super soakers there.
No.
It was lame. It was lame, like, Christmas-themed crap in July, and, like, it was awful. Like, what kid wants that?
And that's why we call Toys R Us the mecca of toy buying. I mean, that's where you went to get the toys.
You know what? Kids who went to FAO Schwartz, honestly, they were the kind of kids who called, like, grandma and grandpa, grandmama, grandpapa, like, go to hell.
Oh my goodness! Oh, that's amazing. Sorry, I keep muting because I'm having a coughing fit, and I apologize.
Or hack and cough.
But, yeah, I hope y'all can't hear me because I keep hitting mute.
You're good.
But yeah, okay. So we have, KB was pretty cool, but it was too small. FAO Schwartz was lame. And you didn't get as many toys, in your big box stores like Walmart and stuff like that. So we have the end all be all of toys. You walk in and this is geared towards kids. You know what I mean? You walk in and it's you're walking into Christmas basically. And you're looking around, you have different sections. You've got the dolls here, you've got the action figures here, you've got the Legos here. Why in God's name did they go out of business? I mean, this is something that I mean, in my opinion, is needed in the world. Every kid should have that moment, should have that one defining, whether you're a teenager or whether you're a kid or whatever, you should have that defining moment of walking into a toy store saying, oh my gosh, this is where I belong, basically. This is what it's about right here. This is great. I've had that several times.
And you'll see. Sorry, go ahead.
Right? No, yeah. I mean, you walk in, they should play that song every time you walk in. And by the way, that's in Ready Player One. I saw that the other night, and it is amazing. But it's one of those things where, like I said, it's needed, and every child should have that moment of walking into the store and going, "Oh my gosh, this is it. This is just for me." Why? Mark, we're going to start with you because I know you're pretty passionate about this. Why did they go out of business?
The official reason Toys R Us gave for going out of business was they They took out millions and $1 billion loans, which whatever money they did make, and there was a point where Toys R Us had reinvented itself and was starting to rehab its stores and therefore its image, and was able to actually make some money. People were still going there and buying toys, despite the other reasons we'll get to in a second. Unfortunately, like anybody else, even if you're getting paid a lot of money, if you have a lot of debt, all that money goes to the debt and it doesn't go to anything else. I'm sure us middle class guys can all identify with that.
Oh, absolutely.
So Toys R Us wanted to make their stores destinations for like birthday parties and create play areas for kids to play with their toys, because that leads to people buying stuff. And all right, Jesse clearly just posted something on YouTube for me because I'm getting a whole bunch of copyright notices.
Nice.
Welcome back, Baby Metal.
Anywho, but so that was part of it. It was, instead of being able to reinvest in their stores the way they wanted to, and really and be competitive with the internet and the internet shopping experience, all the money just went into paying the debt. And I don't know if you've had this experience as an adult with dealing with Toys R Us employees, but here's the thing, and this is going to be a broad statement, but it definitely applies to Toys R Us. At this point, if you go into a brick and mortar store to buy something, you want the people in that store to have like a specialist knowledge of the products, or at least be able to tell you if they have more of a product in the store.
Right.
If you go to somebody and say, hey, do you have any more of these, or do you have something like it, or hey, have you heard of this thing that I'm trying to find for my child or for somebody or for some other kid's birthday or whatever, and they just stare at you and go, I don't know, man, whatever we have on the shelf. Fuck yeah!
Oh my goodness.
That's 3 if we're counting.
Woo!
At least I'm
That was
trying
a good one, too.
Oh, you try, man. I want you to be yourself, Mark. I really do.
There you go.
To heck with you.
To
I
Haiti,
just like to
sir.
state for the record, I haven't had to be censored once tonight.
It's very true.
Yeah,
Tell us that pirate story again, Pat. No, wait a second.
No.
That's a better guess than me. But no, 1, 2, 3. To hell with you. I'll just go on Amazon. I'll get the same level of service and not nearly as much aggravation. And I think that's ultimately the issue here is the whole world changed with the advent of the internet and the internet shopping experience. The fact that no longer have look, Toys R Us isn't carrying anything that Amazon isn't carrying. Okay? There's no reason to go to a Toys R Us anymore unless you physically want to walk around and touch things and have that tactile experience, or maybe you need to buy a bike. Outside of that, there's no reason to go to a Toys R Us anymore, and so people stopped going because again, you didn't have that customer service experience. There was no reason as a destination to go there. Like birthday parties and things like that. I mean, there's a reason why, as much as half the games don't work, people still have their parties at Chuck E. Cheese.
Right.
Well, and can we talk about one of the larger entities as far as Toys R Us accruing massive debt?
Go ahead.
Yeah, that would be Bain Capital.
Well, Pat, expound.
All right. Well, for those who don't know what Bain Capital is what you call a venture capitalist group. And what venture capitalist groups do is they buy majority ownership of a particular brand or a particular organization. And unfortunately, a lot of times their intentions are not honorable. What they say is they want to do this and this and this and reinvest in this, and we're going to bring the business up again. And in reality, what they do is they use the credit established through this business to borrow and borrow and borrow and take that money and fund it into other ventures that they have lined up or into shell accounts and corporations that are really just essentially substitute bank accounts for the primary shareholders. And once there's no more credit left to be had or anything like that, the business that accrued all this debt is either sold outright, sold off in parts, or closed up and the former locations are sold or rented or what have you. And that's one of the things that Bain Capital is notorious for doing to businesses they've been involved in. Another example of them would be Sports Authority, which is what they did to that particular brand.
Mm-hmm. So, what? Okay, here's the other question that I have, and I'll admit that I didn't do much reading on this, but why in the world did Toys R Us, being the powerhouse that they were with toys, why in the world did they need to borrow all that money?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain it right. I mean, I watched a lot of.
Can you do it without swearing?
That I can try for sure, Mark.
Oh my goodness!
I'm sorry. I'm trying.
I'm taking up for you, Mark.
Here's what I heard. This happened back in 2004, between 2004 and 2005. So I don't understand why they did it, though. I think somebody approached them and said, "Hey, look, we want to buy Toys R Us," which I believe is Bain Capital, possibly at this time. I don't have the timeline in front of me. I do know it was between 2004 and 2005 because this guy showed a timeline of their debt. Okay, and you'll see between 2004's debt and 2005's debt goes up by like $300 million, I believe, maybe even more than that. But it goes up a significant amount, and it jumps within that year because at that point, somebody comes and offers Toys R Us to buy Toys R Us. But they say, okay, well, hey, we want to buy the company from you. And in order to do that, they had to get loans from banks. Now, Pat might have just explained all this better than I'm going to, but I think it all ties in together. So they had to get this money from the banks, all right? And the bank said, well, we need collateral. So the person that's buying this says, hey, well, okay, if the collateral is going to be Toys R Us, the very thing that you're buying becomes your collateral, which then puts you into debt. Even more. And what you've got to do is you've got to try and turn this business around, make it very successful in order to pay back your debtors. The problem is that when you incur all this debt and now you are kind of in a stranglehold to where you can't take money, you're too busy paying off all your debtors in order to focus stuff on, like 2004, 2005, the internet age is there, but your internet your website sucks.
Oh, their website is a nightmare. And
they said they could not funnel any money into keeping up with staying above the
mothership is calling.
Hello. This is Master Control.
They couldn't stay. They couldn't take money and put it towards Pat Mullen. Is that fan on again?
No, this time it's something else. I'm trying to figure it out as we go.
All right, I'm bearing with it. But no, they couldn't take that money. Instead, they were paying back all their debtors, and they couldn't focus it on becoming a better competitor when it comes to online shopping, or a better competitor and put money where it was at. One of the guys I was watching today said, imagine if they could have took $400 million a year, because that was one of the figures that they threw out. They're paying debtors, I think it was a year, $400 million a year to try and stay afloat. Imagine if they didn't have to do that, but took that money and instead invested it into the business and changed things around to where they could compete. They couldn't do that. So as things progress, years go by, all they can do is just stay afloat and keep paying this debt. Now, I assume what originally had happened is a guy come to buy the business, and whoever was in charge of Toys R Us at that time sold it off. So we never saw, at that time we didn't know, at least I didn't know that was going on. Toys R Us was Toys R Us. Toys R Us remained the same brand. But all this stuff was changing behind the scenes. So this started this whole series of events started 12, 13 years ago. And it's sad because it just continued to snowball. But it was right there between 2004, 2005, where that sale happened. That amount of debt increased dramatically, and then they just couldn't get out from under it.
I think the Toys R Us is one of those canary in the coal mine stories of if you can't properly prepare for the change in technology, the change in the consumer space, you start to fall behind, and then it's very, very hard to break that cycle.
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. But I think you also hit on another key point earlier, which is the entire draw at that point. When you have online retailers like Amazon, the online variations of the company itself, like shopping on ToysRUs.com or whatever. Your one key area that you can always compete with them is your service.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, again, this is a two-edged sword because on one hand, you have people working what's generally a non-skilled labor job, so you don't want to pay them handsomely, we'll say. On the other hand, if they're getting paid minimum wage to do a minimum wage job, and they're not motivated to move up within the company infrastructure, they're not really that motivated to do that much of a job at the money they're making.
Right.
It goes both ways.
I want to piggyback on that because I want to talk about two different shopping experiences that we can, I think, relate to now. Because again, I remember two shopping experiences in my 20s when the world hadn't changed totally yet. I mean, now, so we're talking the late 90s here, early 2000s is my early 20s, okay? I'm going to be 42 this year, just give you a timeline. And one of the great joys of my life at this time was to go into a Tower Records, as I said before. Tower Records had listening stations, which meant, you could go, you could try out an album, and if you liked it, you bought it. But the other thing that Tower Records did, which made the shopping experience enjoyable for me and why I would go there and maybe not, when they still had these, like a Sam Goody, which was in the mall, was they specifically hired people who were knowledgeable about movies and music. So when you went in there, they were all happy and willing to talk to you for hours about music and movies. And I remember I bought stuff because they said, "Oh, you like this? Well, you should check this out." And I bought a lot of stuff off of a Tower Record recommendation. I bought a lot of stuff because I spent hours at the listening station giving things a try. So with that element that was a draw for me to come to the store. Look, I didn't need to go to a Tower Records as often as I did. I went because I enjoyed the experience.
Right.
Go to a comic book store now. Most of the comic book stores are mom and pop stores. There isn't comic books aren't really sold in big box franchise type places. The only place where you can find them in that kind of an atmosphere is like a Borders Books or a Books A Million. Borders is gone.
Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble. Yeah.
Barnes and Nobles and Books A Million. At least those are the two out near me. Other than that, all the comic book stores are mom and pop places because they don't sell them at 7-Elevens anymore either.
Right. They don't sell them at grocery stores or anywhere like that.
Right. So when you walk in there, nobody owns a comic book store and doesn't know their material. Every comic book store owner, is fully aware of what's going on in the comic book, is a fan, reads some of the stuff themselves. And, the two places that I buy comics for here in Tampa, I can go in there and actually talk to those guys. And again, I can get, based on the conversations we're having, I end up buying something that they pointed me to if I didn't have a shopping agenda to begin with. And that ultimately is where Toys R Us missed the point.
Yeah.
Is that if they had people who were really engaged in what they were selling, really knowledgeable, and were able to talk to the customers, people would have gone back for those experiences. But if I can walk into a Toys R Us and get the same shopping experience that I get at Walmart, probably even less so, because at least the people at Walmart tend to be friendly. I mean, then why bother going to a Toys R Us? I'll just order it off of Amazon. It'll be cheaper.
Yeah, right. Agree 100%. I mean, the company I work for now, and for those who don't know or maybe listening for the first time, I work in the grocery retail spectrum. I'm in the management tier of a company called Wegmans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wegmans preaches out what we call incredible customer service. Wegmans pays you a good deal more at various levels than any of the competing markets like a ShopRite, Kroger, anything like that, because they want to motivate you to provide this service, and they feel that paying you to do so is the right thing to do. The business model and the hiring practice shows that to be accurate for them. However, that's the business model they've set and worked with for going on 100 years now. Mm-hmm. When you have to try to change that culture in an established company like Toys R Us, it's impossible, because what you're doing is you say to the employees, hey, we're going to reinvest in this and we're going to give you this, this, and this. Well, you're going to have resentful employees who've maybe been there in their part-time role doing whatever for, we'll say 7 years, what have you. And all of a sudden they're going to start bringing people in and paying them at the same rate that this person who's been there for 7 years is at. Well, that doesn't motivate you to work any harder, because this person just came in and they're already starting where you work to be at.
Yep.
Right.
That's a big slap in the face. So in that proposition, you're fighting uphill to begin with. And you can armchair quarterback this any number of ways. You could say, oh, well, they could have invested more in, Mark talked about the listening stations. The most comparable thing you had in Toys R Us were the video game stations, where they would have, a console set up with a demo version of a game that come out on a PlayStation or a Nintendo 64 or a Dreamcast.
Dude, how about just a play area? How about literally just an open play area with toys that you're selling for like kids like my son, who is old enough to play and old enough to like play around and play in parks or whatever, but isn't quite old enough for school yet. I wanted to talk about this a little bit later as far as memories and attachments to the place, but I used to take Jonas almost on a weekly basis on my days off when it was just the two of us to Toys R Us. And I'll talk a little bit about some of that later, but one of the things that would have been great for him and for me as a parent would have been if there was a free play area within Toys R Us. Well, I probably would have bought more stuff if that had been the case.
And piggybacking off of that, okay, there's if you go to Home Depot on a weekend or if you go to Target on a weekend, a lot of times what they do is have an active activity involved for kids and parents to take part in. Whether it's painting something or showing them how to build something, whatever. Yeah. Or, my local Target this past weekend did an event with Hatchimals, which are like a hot toy for kids now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't get, but whatever. I'm not a kid.
I can get my daughter to explain it to you. I didn't understand it, but maybe you'd do better.
Well, I'm sure there were stupid things I were into as a kid that my parents didn't get either, and they make little sense to me now. But either way, if these stores are smart enough to do these events with these toys to promote them, how could the toy flagship not come up with something to promote the toys other than occasionally one of the larger locations would have like a signing of some kind? Like I remember, like I was living in Jersey at the time, and one of the big deals was at the Toys R Us in Jersey Gardens Mall in Elizabeth. They had Sid come and do a signing.
Yep.
To push the WWF Jakks Pacific toys that had come out. Okay, but that was it. That was the only time they ever did anything like that. Occasionally in the city, you'd have. In the flagship store in Times Square, you'd have signings from various people, whoever. They'd have Spider-Man appear if there was a new Spider-Man toy line coming out or whatever. Or once in a while, they'd have the WWF Superstars if there was a garden show come out. But because of that area and how cluttered it was get out. It wasn't, hey, walk around and look at our toys here. It was, a push them in, push them out type thing.
Yep.
So it never worked the way it should have. But you look at these little, demos that Home Depot and Target do, designed for kids, and you end up buying stuff at Home Depot for a kid. You'd never imagine you'd ever spend money on a kid at Home Depot, but you do.
Oh, I gotta weigh in here with that. This is totally piggyback to what you're saying. I don't hunt. I've gone hunting, but I'm not an avid hunter. I don't own hunting equipment or a gun. Same thing with fishing. Love to go fishing. Don't own a rod or anything like that. I kind of rent stuff when I go on a boat or whatever. But we go to I can't remember anything tonight. The big hunting Bass Pro Shop. They opened a Bass Pro Shop in about where I live in the suburbs of Tampa. We go constantly. Want to know why? There's fishing events for kids there. My kids love that. Every year, we stop going to the mall to the mall to see Santa. We go to Bass Pro Shop to see Santa. And the whole time you're waiting to see Santa, there's like make a gingerbread house and color, and there's toys everywhere. Dude, the Bass Pro Shop near me has an entire area dedicated to free play. All the toys they're selling are open and there for the kids to play with. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen parents walk out with a toy that they bought for the kid had just been playing with. And this is year-round, not just when Santa's there, but we tend to go for Santa. So it's exactly like Pat's saying. Like, I would never have gone to a Bass Pro Shop in my life. Except for the one time my buddy and I went on a hunting trip, except for the fact that it's got stuff there for my kids to do, and they love it. You know what I mean? That's exactly the kind of thing we're talking about.
It's very true. I mean, it's. Can we talk a little bit about price point too? I mean, was it me, or does everything just seem way more expensive at Toys R Us?
Yeah.
I think by comparison, when everything is marked down at Walmart.
Well,
dude, listen. I went in there just 2 weeks ago because, hey, the buzz is going around. These stores are going to be closing. Maybe there's some sales. I don't know. I just want to go take a look. I haven't been in one in forever, so I was like, I'll go check it out. I was waiting for my daughter to get done with the movies at the mall, so I just drove up there and walked in. And I was immediately displeased as I did not see any sales. I was like, okay, well, the news just hit, so maybe it'll happen later on down the line. And I'm looking at toys, and I'm like, nope. No, I'm not buying that small, tiny, teeny Lego set for $10.
Yeah, right.
I'm not. I'm just there was stuff in there that there was no way that I'd be convinced to purchase in any way at that time. So I think the last time that we were actually at Toys R Us to buy something was when my daughter was given a gift card for her birthday. So even then, I didn't have this pool to go there because of price point. There was at no point in my life if I said, I've got to get to Toys R Us. They've got this stuff cheap. Never happened for me. It's just never happened for me. And maybe that's just because I never got there enough to understand that there was a lot of things that you normally couldn't find. But I could find things easy enough on the internet.
It's funny, too, because Toys R Us used to be the place to go to beat price point competitors. Like, again, talking about how we had one major Toys R Us in all of Brooklyn, which I'm not trying to minimize, things, but at one point in time when it was recognized as a city, Brooklyn was the 4th largest city in America. So you have one Toys R Us location there that's a major Toys R Us location. Now, you had your local neighborhood toy stores, and I remember some of them very fondly, like Alice Toyland and Park Slope, which is actually in the movie The Squid and the Whale, where Jeff Bridges plays, the butthole dad. There's that store. There was a store called Platt's. There was a store called Save on Fifth, where you could get a lot of the toys that you wanted, but your parents ended up paying like 2 times the amount that they would have got it for at Toys R Us.
Not impressed.
Yeah, okay. I told you I was collecting a few Transformers and things like that. Pops, the Pops are like $11.99 or something like that which is about, par for the course, give or take $2, both ways. Transformers, they had this one set, it was kind of from the movie, and it was like the battle. Oh, jeez, I can't remember. It was like the Junkyard Battle,
Oh yeah,
and it was three figure set. It was Hot Rod, Wreck-Gar, and Scrap Heap. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, you know. And I looked at it; it was $74.99. $74.99. And I was like, you got to be kidding me! There's no way, you know. And I understand that, you know, I'm walking into expensive territory when I look at Transformers. Absolutely. I mean, it's crazy expensive. But you know, there's no way that $74.99. You know, these are worth $74.99. So, you know, I just got a wild hair and started looking, and I got on Amazon $34.99. So
Right, come on.
I was like, yeah, $40 cheaper.
You're not going to be competitive with that at all.
By the way, y'all motivated me to check out Funko Pops, and I'm going to pre-order one that's not released yet. It is a Billy from Stranger Things 2.
Nice. Yes.
Billy.
So, Jesse, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
And I'm asking you specifically because, again, you've got kids, but you've got kids that have been playing video games longer than mine have. But do you think one of the things that ate into and Ronnie, I don't know if any of the articles I sent you talked about this, but one of the things that that ate into Toys R Us's bottom line that they didn't fully prepare for was the shift in play from tactile figurines to video games.
It's a great question because that was where I honestly was going to go if Ronnie threw it to me in regards to what I think may have had a hand in its downfall. I, as a father, have learned quite a few things over the last 12 years. One of which is at about year 5 with your first kid, you start to realize that you're running out of space.
Yep. Okay, I get it.
There is a lot of toys. And then you start to think to yourself, what does my kid play with most? Because 80% of this stuff has to go. What does she play with the most? So kid 2 rolls around, Caleb, and we run into the same situation. Kid 2. And I'm like, okay, I really need to sit down and watch and see what these kids do to pass the time and figure out what we're going to get rid of. Because, again, even though we wanted to do that with kid number 1, we didn't really do it as well as we should have. Well, okay, so here was what I noticed. Specifically Caleb, my first son would not put his, whenever we got a new iPhone, we gave him the old one so he could watch it. That was in his hands, and the Xbox controller was in his hands. And it was very, very rare that we would see him pick up and play with anything other than a few significant toys, such as his wrestlers and his wrestling ring. He loved playing with those, and there was maybe another 2 or 3 toys that he liked to mess around with. The rest of it, dude, was honestly video games and tablet or phone related. So those right there are significant investments when it comes to, like, my kid can get an app, okay? My kid can get an app on his phone or on his tablet, and he could spend hours playing on that app and have a good time. Not only that, he can watch Netflix on there. He can watch Hulu. He's got TV, all that stuff. So that's all keeping him occupied. So there was a point where I finally realized, okay, I just need to I need to start investing in, like, iTunes cards or, a video game that he would like to play. And he would be set for, like, months and not do really anything else. I honestly cannot tell you the last time he picked up one of his wrestlers. It's been quite a while. He's been mostly playing Roblox, or he's been playing Fortnite, and because we got him an Xbox, and he just loves it. So, I'm not going out and buying physical toys anymore. I'm not picking up those figures for him. Now, me, on the other hand, if there's something that's very nostalgic, I might find it in my heart to buy it. But I honestly am buying it secondhand.
Well, and let's talk about the difference in terms of, what figures, not to sound like the old codger, but what figures cost then and now.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking, I go into Walmart, my local Walmart, and I see WWE figures that they have on the shelves, and, there's different kinds, but, your main line of WWE figures, I guess you'd call them, they retail about $12.99 a piece.
Yep.
When, I was collecting Hasbros, we'll go with, okay, because that's the longest time I ever spent collecting figures and playing with the WWF Hasbro line. Still my childhood favorite, but those figures were $3.99 a piece.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, they were smaller, they didn't have all the points of articulation, whatever, but literally everything that is being done with these figures now is the same stuff we were doing in 1990, 1991. The same thing. You're putting on matches. You're, doing interviews. And you're playing with the figures and making your own wrestling show happen. Okay, they were $3.99. They have quadrupled in price, and that's a big swing. You're talking 4 of those figures equals 1 of the current runs. Yeah, I get inflation. Yeah, I get things. That doesn't add up.
Well, the largest amount of wrestlers that we got, I think, was completely secondhand. And I really hope that the person that originally bought these did not buy them all brand new, because we got a huge crate full of them. And I was just sitting there thinking, if this person bought them brand new and went to Toys R Us, they would have spent a fortune. And compared to what they sold them to us for, I mean, it was pennies on the dollar. Legitimately pennies on the dollar. So, again, price-wise, you're not selling me there, because I don't want to spend an arm and a leg to get a toy that, me personally, I don't think is worth that. Now, if my kid really wants it, that's where it all comes down to. If your kid really wants it, if they want that toy, okay, maybe you're going to make a concession to get it. But honestly, the video game thing, I believe that is a big portion of why kids aren't buying physical parents, I should say, why parents aren't buying all that physical stuff. Now, Colton's a different breed, because that boy can play with his Legos, and he's got a mind of his own. But I honestly don't recall Kira sitting down and playing with her doll babies for hours on end, like my son Colton does. So I don't think that Colton is a good representation of what most kids are out there. Well, and I'm sure that also, real quick, the length of a toy buyer, or the age of a toy buyer, was probably a lot older back in the day. Now,
I was just going to say, I think I am born in 1976, so I'm a child of the 80s, and I'm pretty sure I was playing with toys probably to the end of junior high. I want to say the transition from junior high into high school was where a lot of that. Now, what is a toy? We're talking. When I'm really young, elementary school age, Transformers, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Hot Wheels, that sort of thing. Still playing with toys as I got older, but toys tended to become Super Soakers, things like that. Less outside of collector's type stuff. Less necessarily action figures. Now, as you're saying, my daughter's a really good example of this. This past Christmas, it was very, very hard to, Legos aside, because Legos, I'm finding out, are there's no age range.
They're universal. Yeah,
they're pretty universal. I got a Lego for Christmas. I got a Lego Darth Vader, which I built and is currently on my shelf. I'm just thinking that's like my one contribution to the Pops conversation. I built my own Lego Darth Vader, and it's currently in my living room.
God, I'm like the only kid who never cared about Legos.
I'll tell you, I care more now as an adult than I did as a kid. But Legos aside, because both my kids are really into building with Legos, and my daughter is sort of like a savant when it comes to Legos. But it was other than that, she has about 1.2 billion Barbies. So we decided no Barbies for Christmas this year. This past year.
She still play with them?
It depends. And that's what I was getting to, but it was very, very hard to figure out what exactly to buy a 7-year-old girl in a toy store because she just didn't play with a lot anymore.
Yep.
Like very quickly, she went from it's all everything's got to be a doll. I'm all about dolls, baby dolls, and baby strollers and Barbies. She was just mad, simply mad about Barbies, and then suddenly it was like meh. But her tablet, her TV, and Legos, and that was about it. And it was like, well, Jesus Christ, it doesn't leave us a whole lot to get. Like we got her like a lot of like science stuff for like kiddie science stuff for Christmas because we didn't know what else to get her.
And what you do is soon after you get it, you have buyer's remorse because you see it laying in that corner for 3 weeks untouched, and you're like, why did I spend my money on that?
Oh, dude, her birthday and Christmas are like really close together. Like we're talking, Christmas is December 25th, and her birthday is like January 5th.
Oh no. The wrapping paper's still on the floor from Christmas, and
it's like June, and I walk into her room, and she still hasn't opened yet.
Yeah.
Now, some of that is because like she needs mommy and daddy to help her with it. Like we got to like make your own lipstick kind of a thing, and it's like, well, she's not doing that by herself. Not at 7 years old.
No, thank God. That would lead down a really bad path really early.
She'd burn the house down.
No, I wasn't going that. We'll leave that alone. Out of
Yeah.
Mark's cursed enough tonight. He doesn't need to do it again. No, but Jesse's talking about the video game revolution in terms of and not necessarily video games, but just technology in general. Toys R Us, you'd also buy video games. That was one of the spots you knew would have generally every video game out on the market because that was what they did. Whereas, your local, video game store, what have you, may not have the new releases or may not have one particular game you're looking to rent or whatever. So you go to Toys R Us on the birthday or whatever, and you get to pick out one. If your family had money, maybe 2 games that you could get for Sega, Nintendo, all the way up to, the PlayStation days. But now, there's so much content that's just downloadable through your Xbox.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
You don't even have to leave your couch. Do not even have to leave your couch to do that. And with the Xbox One, I've taken full advantage of that here lately with Caleb. We got the Xbox Game Pass. Dude, I'm not going to have to buy a game for probably a year because he's perfect. He's going to be satisfied, or there's going to be something on there that he can find and play.
I mean, that's the whole thing. And then on top of it, again, we talked about how they used to have those PlayStation, or that's a bad word because PlayStation's actually a system, but those demo stations where you could try a game. They didn't give you options. They just have one game. The bigger stores might have a PlayStation demo zone and a Nintendo 64 one. Most of them only had one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And you had one game that didn't change from what it was for like weeks upon weeks, rather than giving you options where you could play a couple different games and figure out which one you liked. And I never heard of this, but I'm playing it now and I want to get it. They never did that.
Ronnie Adams, Slugman.
I'm right
Slugworth.
here. Man, I'm telling you, it's not pretty right now. Well, I mean, these are, I hate to say it, but these are all led to the demise of Toys R Us as we know it. I say as we know it because we don't know what the future holds. We don't know. We don't know what's what's going to become of the company. In the long term. They're probably just stay out of business. I mean, let's be honest with you.
I was going to say, I just got an email saying I have a Toys R Us credit card, and I just got an email saying, all the stores are closing, but you still have to pay your bill, okay?
There we
just
go.
A reminder. Help us get out of debt.
Yeah, good luck with that.
There's no getting out of debt there. You're just paying off their.
Well, this way it's not even Toys R Us. I'm paying off Synchrony Bank.
Right. But as an entity, Toys R Us does not exist anymore. So, I mean, it's sad. It's a little piece of my childhood gone. I'm sure that you all feel the same way. But with that, rising from the ashes of the dumpster fire, we'll get into that in a second. I forgot that I want to talk about these stupid going out of business sales. Now, when I was away from the mic, did you all talk anything about that?
No.
All right. So we're getting the emails, we're seeing the articles, we're hearing the news. They're going out of business and they're going to have liquidation sales. Everything must go. Everything. So I went to my local.
Does anyone have a sneaking suspicion this is all going to end up in an Ollie's?
Yes.
I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah, right.
I don't even know what Ollie's is.
It is the cheapest of all cheap stores.
You know what a Big Lots is?
Yes.
Okay. That Ollie's is like, I don't know, a second-rate version of Big Lots where you have...
Imagine Big Lots, but only it's Big Lots' uncle that never really leaves the trailer and is just constantly, like, always dressed in white t-shirt with crazy hair. That's all.
Now ask me why I know about Ollie's, Pat.
Mark, why do you know about Ollie's?
Because our friend of the show, Josh Calandros, said, "Hey, I went to Ollie's and I bought all of these really, really cheap DC trade paperbacks for like 10 cents on a dollar." And then like a week or so later, he was like, "Hey guys, I went to another Ollie's and I picked up all of these trades." And he took a picture of it and showed us. And I Googled what an Ollie's was because I didn't know what the hell it was either. And what we found out is that like Ollie's across the nation all bought the same lot of DC trades and discounted them like 90%.
Yeah, dude. And when we say they bought a lot, I'm talking like there is at least 30 to 40 different books to pick from and multiple copies. I bought a hardback. It was like a DC's World's Finest hardback graphic novel. Normally, I think it's like $40. It was on sale for $6.99. So $6.99. So a lot of this stuff is like really, really marked down. And Ollie's, I don't know what planet they ran into this stuff on, but I've never seen anything like it. I've never honestly ever seen anything like this before.
I did buy my favorite towel from Ollie's though.
Ollie's Bargain Outlet. Is this it?
That's it.
If they ask you to join Ollie's army, say no.
Yeah, I was a sucker and joined.
Well, I thought it was a requirement. Ollie's card. Oh no, I don't have one. Better sign me up. I better get one. I thought it was a requirement to purchase.
Fucking Sam's Club.
Yeah. So like they said, do you want to you want an Ollie's card? And I'm like, do I have to? And they're like, no. And I was like, then absolutely not. And they just bring me up.
I tried to find one within 20 miles of me, and that doesn't exist.
Oh.
I have to go 30 miles to the nearest one.
Dude, they have the showcase. The showcase volumes of DC, like the black and white, kind of like the Marvel.
I remember them. The hardcovers where you could get collected volumes because I have a couple.
Well, these are the showcase volumes are like 500 pages, kind of like the Marvel, where they're black and white, real tissue paper. Almost tissue paper quality stuff.
Essential Volume 1, Essential Volume.
Yeah. Those things are going for like $3 to $4. I mean, it's ridiculous how cheap they are.
Now, imagine you take Ollie's and the deals that you find on the graphic novels and the things that you can actually use in Ollie's. I'm never going to use a shotgun-shaped plunger, but by golly, I will take a bath towel the size of a queen-size bed sheet any day.
Can we go back to the plunger that looks like a shotgun?
I need to see this thing. I'm looking it up.
Well, go to Ollie's. I'm guaranteed you'll buy one. You'll get one.
If one of you guys could set, my birthday's in June. If someone could send me a plunger that looks like a shotgun, I would greatly appreciate it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Done, sir. Done.
Himalayan salt lamp for $9.99.
Yeah. They have all kinds of stuff. So the stuff that you get, you can use. Yeah, it's not a bad deal. It's really good deals. But then you imagine the opposite. The exact opposite of that, and that's what you get in the going out of business sales with Toys R Us.
Oh yeah.
So I walked in on the first one of the first day. I didn't go the very first day. I walked into Toys R Us on a Saturday, and it was absolutely jam packed. They were fighting over parking spaces and everything. I was like, man, they must be throwing things at people. Here, just take this. Get out of here. And I walk in.
We're closing
I'm
tomorrow.
like, I'm like, all right, the way this is set up, I'm going to have to go to the Legos. No problem. I like building stuff. Maybe I can get some, pick up a nice Lego kit. 5%.
Oh, come on.
5%.
5%. This is a long
So I said,
game.
all right, Legos, high end. The stuff that I would have want to build are it's like $100, $150, whatever. Not my deal. Not 5%. So I go to the action figure section. You can find wrestling. You can find the Marvel Legends series, stuff like that. The Star Wars Black series. These 6-inch figures, collectibles. 10%. Everything else was 10% off, and that's it.
Well, isn't that manufacturer controlled though? Because Toys R Us isn't their only distributor.
No, I wouldn't think so because, Toys R Us they're still getting trucks in, but they're just emptying out their warehouses. The Toys R Us has already bought this stuff, so they're selling it just to get their money back.
It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me one bit, to be honest. I can remember FYE doing the same thing. They're going out of business and they're doing 30% off, and I'm like, oh wow, regular price. I finally got it down to regular price where I can pay for it. So
all I know is a coworker of mine. Now they shut these stores down in waves. If you'll remember earlier in the year, we're not too far into the year yet, but earlier this year in 2018. They said, hey, Toys R Us is liquidating some of their stores. And there's an area in Hillsborough County, Florida, called Citrus Park. It's kind of a Richie Rich white area. And that was one of the stores that was going first. So I was talking to a coworker, and after the big news that all the stores were going down, and I was like, and she was like, "Hey," we were talking about have you been to the Toys R Us? And I was talking about the one near where I live, which is the other side of the county. And she was like, "No, I went to the one in Citrus Park. Let me tell you two things about that. One, there's nothing left, and two,
wow,
they just gave up on that store because it was dirty as all get out."
Nice. Well, I mean, I'm getting that vibe from the one in Greensboro here. Because I walked in that day and it was, people were losing their minds. They were grabbing stuff. It was like the end of the world riot, man. They're grabbing stuff and they're fighting or Black Friday. They're grabbing stuff. They're clutching it like, grandma needs this to, this part to her iron lung. Otherwise she's going to die or something,
I got a better one. Remember the Tickle Me Elmo craze?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Tickle Me Elmo Infinity.
Yeah, Cabbage Patch Kid craze.
I had one. I had a Cabbage Patch Kid.
Yeah, we have several at my mother and father's house.
In an alarming personal defeat, I will fully admit that as a child, I had a Cabbage Patch Kid solely so I could pretend to be Rick Rude.
I dare you to tell Jed in this strong style chat that you had a Cabbage Patch Kid. I dare you.
Oh, I absolutely will. But when he finds out it was to be Rick Rude, and then I also had a bathrobe to be Rick Rude, I think he'll be like, "Yep, okay, that makes sense."
Mad respect.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, I walked by this. It was the big brontosaurus looking thing from Power Rangers.
The Dragon Zord.
Yeah, one of the Dragon Zords, but it wasn't the Dragon Zord. It was a dinosaur, and I think it was like Tommy's, but it was it was a huge one. And I was like, my buddy Van, he's really into Power Rangers. I mean, he's been collecting Power Rangers stuff since he was a kid, and he's got a kid, and he's going to pass all this stuff down to him. So I was like, I wonder if he has that. Well, he does, but he didn't have this particular one because it was black and gold. And I was like, it's collectors or whatever. So I took a picture of it, sent him, and he said, "Oh, how much?" I said, $150. And he goes, "Really?" He said, "Well, what's the deal on it?" And I looked, and of course, 10%. I was like, "You could get it for $135." And he was like, that's terrible. So, you've got all these, they're not going anywhere. I went back today, actually, research for the show to see what they had. Same deals, 10%. Everything that I thought was going to be there was still there. Those Power Rangers, the Bruticus or whatever it was. They were cleaned out of Transformers, though. Cleaned out, plumb out. They still had a few Voltron figures left, like the bigger ones that you could actually combine, and things like that. But I'm just sitting there going, other than the $150 one, what makes people think that 10% is such a good deal that they have to break their necks to get here and buy this stuff? They're going, of course, the one here is Toys R Us and Babies R Us combined, so they're buying a lot of baby stuff too. But it was all the same thing, 10% through the whole store. So, they're still clutching on to, we got to make that dollar before we shut down.
Yeah, I think it will take it's going to take a few. Hopefully at some point we're going to see, 50 to 60% off, 75% off. But, dude, the way you're talking, there's not going to be much left because people are going insane at the 5-10% level.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You've got kids holding on to these Lego things. It's not $74.99 anymore. It's it's now $68.
Woohoo!
Woo! I'm like, that's a deal. I'm like, dude, the day I buy my kid a $68 Lego set is the day that I need to be committed.
No, I will counter that point with you will buy your child a $68 Lego kit.
Well, they better play with it until they're 30.
That's all they're getting for the year. I hope they can make plenty of things out of it.
I'm telling you, we tend to shy on the side of the cheaper Lego sets for Lily. One, because they're a little bit easier for her to build, and two, because obviously they're cheaper. But she's definitely gotten, definitely from her grandparents, some of the more bigger, expensive Lego kits. You will buy the $68 Lego kits.
Well, it better be 10% off.
The only like real going at a business sale or whatever that I was like, okay, I'm gonna make a stop here consciously, and I have to check it out. Is I'm a movie guy. We're all movie guys. So when Blockbuster was clearing out their inventories, I had to hit those. Mm-hmm. And the whole premise of that was every week it's gonna drop. But now you're gambling with what's there because what if somebody grabs this thing at this price before you do? So, but that was like the last time, or really the only time, when something was going out of business. I was like, I got to get in there and grab some stuff. And again, those markdowns were significant, though. Like, you were getting what were essentially newly released DVDs that they got probably up until about the last month of their existence for like $3.99.
Yeah.
What do you think as projecting a year or two now, and kind of looking back, what do you think will have had the bigger cultural impact on this country? The closing of Blockbuster, which was, again, if you remember when that went down, it was like you could it was almost like audible. You could hear an institution blowing up. Yeah. It was like, who thought Blockbuster was going to go? They owned video rentals for such a long time. It was, and that's the thing. It was like it came out of the creation of the VCR and the VHS tape. Once VHS won the war against Beta, there are people listening to this pod that are going to listen to the podcast going, "What in the hell is he talking about? Is that from Battlestar Galactica?"
Right.
But yes, it was something called a Betamax at one time. It wasn't just a cartoon.
It was shorter tapes, but they were thicker.
Yeah, it kind of looked like 8-tracks.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that no one's going to understand unless you're over 40.
God,
I'm old.
At that point, I'm like, just shut up and go play with your iPod.
Anyway, so but Blockbuster was one of those things where I don't think anybody saw that one coming, and suddenly the world changes in such a way that it makes the entire industry obsolete. And it goes up in smoke, and there's no way for them to recover without utterly changing their business model. And now you have the same thing happening with Toys R Us. But here's the thing. Not everybody went to Blockbuster to rent videos, especially if you were looking for porn. Everybody went to Toys R Us to look for toys. At some point in your life, I mean, I don't want to be sacrilegious, especially on the Screaming Boy podcast with Ronnie Adams. But
Nice.
I mean,
Too late.
but I mean, to me, it's as ubiquitous as a church. Like, like everyone goes here. This isn't like a niche market or anything. There were a lot of mom and pop video stores. There's not a lot of mom and pop toy stores. It was kind of Toys R Us, KB, and that's it.
Yeah, toys have been around since almost the dawn of time. Blockbuster videos have been around for a lot less time. So I think you talk about the cultural impact that it'll have. I think Toys R Us has got miles on Blockbuster, just because most people that here in about 10 years, nobody's going to know what a Blockbuster is. Or was at any point, because that's just going to kind of go out of generations. 70 years Toys R Us has been around. 70 years. And now with it leaving, there's going to be a gap. Something's going to need to come in and take its place. Walmart may have already done that because that's, I'll go up to toy aisle. Go ahead.
Okay, pop-up starter. Let me tell you something. Jonas and I sat Monday night, on the computer, and he has a birthday coming up in like 2 weeks. He's having his birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese if y'all want to come. From Ohio, West Virginia.
Yeah, we're on our way.
Jersey. Y'all want to come down
North Carolina, sir.
I'm swinging by and picking up Pat. We're coming down.
Makes sense.
Y'all want to come by to Chuck E. Cheese in Brandon, Florida. He's got a birthday coming up. And we sat on Amazon for about an hour editing, not creating, editing, curating his wish list. He's got a wish list. My daughter has a wish list. I've got a wish list. My wife's got one. My nephew has one. I mean, I could go on. So when you say something's going to replace, something has replaced it.
Yeah.
There's a couple of gals who are not my wife, right, Jesse? Gals who are not my wife that I work with. Sometimes they get an errant penis pic. I cleaned that one up for you, Ronnie.
Thank you.
Yeah. But when they're not receiving errant penis pics, I invited them to Jonas's birthday because they've got children of their own, or nephews and nieces, or they just wanted to come to Chuck E. Cheese. One of them told me. And didn't have considering she's almost 40, she didn't have a good excuse. So she's using my kid as one. But she was like, yeah, what does he want for his birthday? And I'm like, here's the link to his wish list. They're like, oh, thank God.
Yes.
That's amazing.
That right there is what's needed anymore is the wish list. So you can just be like, okay, here you go. And turn them loose and let them pick what they want. Go for it.
I posted the wish list in his Facebook invite.
Brilliant. That's you are a great man. You are a great man.
3 institutions replaced by virtual reality, ladies and gentlemen.
I know I get called the contrarian, and it's earned. I'll tell you this. Yeah, it was special to be able to go into Toys R Us, and everybody knew what Toys R Us was, and all that jazz. How many times in the span of, let's say, a calendar year, were you in Toys R Us?
Before I had kids, none.
Well, even as a kid, we'll go with, okay? From the ages of, like, when you can first remember till you were, like, 12 years old, we'll say, is the cutoff.
I'm going to go with maybe 4 or 5 times a year for me.
Yeah.
Right. How many times during the span of, let's say, from the time you were 6 to, like, 16, were you in a Blockbuster?
A lot. A lot. To be honest.
Yeah.
One, they were everywhere. That was Blockbuster used to be what Starbucks is now. There were like Blockbusters across the street from a Blockbusters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
And here's where I'm going with that. Especially before you were able to really like go out and cruise with your friends, or go out to dance clubs or whatever, or school dances or whatever the deal was. A lot of times what you did with your buddies on a night was either rent some horror movies from Blockbuster and grab some snacks or whatever and scare the bejesus out of each other, or you'd rent a video game or 2 video games or whatever and play those. That's, to me, the thing is the frequency with which you had the Blockbuster experience if you grew up with it. And there's probably a generation ranging from I don't know. I mean, Mark's a 76 baby. I'm 10 years after him, but we both have those same experiences. It's one of those things where, honestly, the Blockbuster one was more a central part of things because of how much you did it to me. And how, I love the toys, don't get me wrong. It was awesome. I still have, 3 really vivid Toys R Us experiences, which are, among the happiest days of my life, which is both awesome and sad.
Nice.
But, those Blockbuster nights with your buddies in junior high school and everything, whether it was renting the hot new game that you didn't get to buy yet and just all of you combining your efforts to try to figure out how to beat the boss at level 4 to get to the next level, or you rented a couple of slasher flicks and just were screwing with each other, scaring each other, that type of thing. Or you rented American Pie because one of your parents didn't know any better, so you were able to trick one of them into letting you all watch it, and you got to see Shannon Elizabeth topless.
Or my dad just didn't care.
Or your dad just didn't care. Or, you had a divorced parent who's trying to score points and be the cool parent, whatever it was.
Right.
So I do think that while people may superficially say the Toys R Us, I'm going to say the Blockbuster experience is going to be the more missed one.
So, okay.
I completely agree with you on that.
I want to throw this out there because we were talking about, you started the podcast with, I'm sorry if you have an agenda and I'm taking this in a different direction, Ronnie.
No, go for it.
I want to get this out there before we end for the night. And that is, Pat's absolutely right. As a kid, it was really kind of a quarterly thing. Like I said, it was related to me with, report cards. He's absolutely right. They were, number one, there was one Toys R Us in a 50-mile radius from where I lived. To get there was an epic journey. On the other hand, there was a Blockbuster everywhere, and you could walk to the Blockbuster from my house. So, and the need to go to Blockbuster was all, as Pat was saying, was, certainly more often than the need to go and buy a toy. So I totally agree with him on that. But as a 40-year-old adult parent of 2 children, I will tell you that, obviously, I can't really relate to the Blockbuster anymore. They're gone. But I will tell you that I've spent a lot of time in Toys R Us over the last couple of years. And I'll tell you, I joked earlier before we started the show that, I told Jonas that Toys R Us was closing, and, and he actually cried. He was really sad. He was like, does that mean I'm not going to get any toys anymore? There was a part of me that wanted to tell him, yeah. But,
Right. Like you do.
But here's the thing. As I said before, there were days over the past 3 years since my schedule changed where I was off from work and Melissa was at work, Lily was at school, and it was just me and Jonas at home. And one of the things that I would like to do is take him to Toys R Us and just let him walk around. And I learned a lot about my son. I learned his likes. I learned his dislikes. He would do really funny things, like he would see a toy and go, "Oh, Daddy, you better get over here and look at this." 5 minutes later, put it down, walk, find something else. "Oh, Daddy, have you seen this yet?" I was wildly entertained watching him get so excited about these toys, and it helped. Which leads to my next thing. Those were bonding experiences for my son and I, and more so than my own memories as a kid, those would be the memories that I treasure. Years from now, when I think back about Toys R Us and how I relate to it, it won't be my childhood memories. It'll be my memories as a father.
Yeah,
because that's what I'm going to miss the most with this institution closing. Is that's one less place where we got to be father and son and have that experience and really be engaged with one another. Outside of sitting on the couch and wrestling every night like we do. But the other thing is, it became an annual tradition for my wife and I to have a shopping date night around Christmas. We would my parents would watch the kids, and my wife and I would go to Toys R Us, and we would do all of our Christmas shopping for just our two kids at Toys R Us because, because we could have gone to Walmart and actually saved some money, but we wanted to go to Toys R Us. That was our time to be a couple. And we would go, we would get our shopping done, and then we would go to dinner. And it really was. It was a date night. And as I related to my son, my wife and I would relate to each other because we would really because it wasn't like we kind of had a list going in of what we were going to get them. We would look. My wife just loved to look around the store and see what was there because she didn't get to go as often as I did. And we would talk about, well, what are our kids into? And it was, I remember this past Christmas shopping experience, and the realization I didn't know my daughter as well as I thought I did, and it made me really sad, which is sort of a weird thing to bring up, but it's an experience and it's a memory I'm going to hold on to. And it was a reminder that I have to try a little bit harder with her. My son's easy. He's also a boy. I relate easier to him.
Right.
My daughter's a little harder to, sometimes to crack that window and see, into her world. But things like that, it was Toys R Us brought me and my wife there. It made us pay attention to each other in a different way than we normally do. It made me think about my kids differently. And now it's gone, and I don't have that anymore. And I can't replicate that experience in the 2 lanes of toys at Walmart.
Right.
Or going or clipping off things on a wish list on Amazon. So I just kind of wanted to bear that part of my soul out there, and share it. This is a different way of relating to the closing of Toys R Us.
No, and that's great. That's it's all the experience of going to Toys R Us. There's different experiences for different people that go there. Whether going there as a kid and getting that awe-inspiring, like, oh my gosh, or going there as a teenager finding that random 64 controller that you didn't think was there, or just spending quality time with your wife. It's just, it's a sad part of our life. It's a part of our lives that we're sad to see go. Real quick, we read that with the close of Toys R Us, we might be seeing the rise of KB Toys again, which kind of makes me excited, but not as much as, hearing that Toys R Us might be coming back, which is not on the news or anything.
Let me throw this out there. It's KB Toys was the mall toy store, and seeing as I can go pull up 10 articles from CNN Money, not exactly fake news, that are talking about the downfall of the mall. We're gonna come back on the Streaming Boy podcast, and when malls are no longer a thing, we'll talk about that too.
I don't understand what they're going to do if they're going to be tossing these stores back into the malls. That's a business model that is not going to pan out so great.
I did go to the Four Seasons Town Center today, and despite a failing business, business type, business structure, that mall was bumping for a Thursday in the middle of the day.
One of the things
people there.
One of the things I also heard is that they're going to be, at least in the beginning, it's going to be what they call pop-up stores.
Yeah.
So that's different than getting a whole place and being a fixture in the mall as well. They may be there for just a season and then, 5 months gone.
I'll tell you what, the Spirit Halloween store gets my business every year, and those pop up just for Halloween.
Yeah.
And it's all overpriced costumes and everything else. But again, if that became a family institute, a Radulich family institution, the yearly trip to the overpriced Halloween store.
Yeah. I was really surprised at how well they were doing today, as far as the mall. But I saw 2 massage parlors in the mall.
Like happy ending massages, or
no,
like Hand and Stone,
like legit-ish massage parlors. They were, the big glass front, mall opening on their windows. They're not going to do anything shady right there. Well, That's a different discussion for a different show.
Don't fall into the trap, Ronnie.
No, a different discussion for a different show. Not this one. Ever. But I counted.
If you do want that, go see Gavin Napier.
Oh my goodness!
He'll tug you off like close hammer.
Oh no!
I can honestly say that's the first time that's ever been said on the show.
He'll tug you off like close hammer. You're welcome.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's a first.
Johnny, Ronnie's looking at his G-rated rating on iTunes and just throwing it out in the garbage.
That's what they made Audacity for. It's
the Screaming Boy podcast, more beats than R2D2.
Right. Oh my goodness, it's funny.
Waka waka.
But I counted 5 nail salons.
See,
in their eyebrow and nail salons.
That's
2 massage parlors.
Dude.
Big money.
And then I walked by this, several kiosks where they were like, "Hey, you want to try, our signature fragrance?" Dude, you're holding a little blue vial with a cotton swab on top of it. If you get near me with that again, I'm gonna punch you in your teeth.
So you said
if you stay awake and they don't load you in the van.
Right. Exactly. That's so shady. And but you got these little stores like that popping up in the mall. These local owned businesses and stuff like that. But I went to mall today just to pop hunt. Funko Pops, Hot Topic, GameStop, and FYE. And those are the 3 stores I hit because honestly, I don't recognize most of the other stores that are in there because most of the good stores are shutting down. But once again, the rise and the fall of the American Mall will be on a later show at Screaming Boy, where you'll hear Mark Gradlich and Tolier's Pat and Jesse talk about that as well. I've already booked you all for another show, so
hooray!
I'm desperately not to curse.
Dude, you're fine. But yeah, I mean, Toys R Us, we're going to miss you. We're going to start with Jesse. Any final thoughts?
No, I hate to see it go. I'm going to miss the commercials the most. I'm going to miss the jingle. I'm going to miss the jingle. I can't tell you how many videos are out there mourning the loss of this store.
Yeah.
I did happen upon they did the quick little, I think it was Entertainment Tonight, did a quick little interview with the person that actually created the jingle, which was a lady who was, oh my goodness. Yes, she created it in the 1980s. So I say that 3 times. And she created it in the 1980s. And yeah, she did that under the direction of her manager, a soon to be famous author by the name of James Patterson. So
what?
Yeah, she created the jingle, and he was like her ad agent, or it was an ad agency that she was working for. And there go the "I don't want to grow up, I want to be a Toys R Us kid" jingle that we all know and love. And she said in the interview that she had no idea that it was going to be that popular of a song.
Once again, I'm a Hills kid. I still remember Hills is where the toys are, and that was it. And they had that creepy little elf that came out, and that was my jam right there. But I do, yeah, the Toys R Us jingle, man.
I don't want to grow up. Yeah, it's going to be missed. It's an American institution. A lot of people are mourning it. Yeah. You're going to see so many pictures of people going to KBs. What do you think of that? They're going to go back in time. And they're going to take pictures. It's amazing. Now they're going to go to Toys R Us. I did it myself. Took myself a little selfie with the Toys R Us in the background because you don't know. We may never see this again here in about 6 months. They may all be wiped off the planet, and it's an American institution that's going away.
I'll be replaced by Starbucks.
Oh, now I'm thoroughly depressed. Pat, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah. So I went into a Toys R Us, the same Toys R Us I mentioned earlier, Caesars Bay, Brooklyn, New York, and it was my last day of preschool. And the last day of school, report cards and everything like Mark talked about was not a tradition for me. But for whatever particular reason, this year it was. And I was at the height of my wrestling fandom as a youngin', and the WWF had just discontinued the big rubber LJN figures and started making these Hasbro figures.
Yep.
And, for my birthday, I had gotten a bunch of the first wave, but I didn't get one of my favorite, and that was the Ultimate Warrior. And the Ultimate Warrior was my guy, and of all the figures not to get, I didn't get the Ultimate Warrior. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. I didn't understand how this worked. So, at that point, I was pretty disappointed, even though I had a lot of cool figures and whatever. So, we got to go to Toys R Us, and I got to pick out a bunch of stuff. Like, literally, 5 or 6 things. And I was told you get 2 wrestlers, you get 2 superheroes, and you get 2 supervillains. And what? That's great. That's crazy. What?
That's insane.
I know. So I got to pick 2 wrestlers, and one of them just so happened to be not the Ultimate Warrior figure that had come out in the first line, which was one of the ones where if you pushed down on the back, it had a little T-bar and it popped up, which I hated. I hated those figures. But this was a new one. And what this one had was the ability to do the press slam.
Oh, the spring-loaded arms.
Yeah, just like the real Ultimate Warrior.
Sort of.
Yeah. And I'll be damned if that just didn't make my year right there, that not only did I get to go and pick out 6 toys, which is like treasure trove, but I got to pick out the new Ultimate Warrior figure that actually did the press slam.
That's awesome.
And on a sad side note, the other figure I picked out, unfortunately,
Demolition Axe.
No, I had Axe already.
Oh, okay.
I could have had Dusty Rhodes.
Oh.
Which wound up being worth a collector's sum years later. Could have had one of my personal favorites, which also wound up being very valuable, Akeem. The African Dream. I picked the figure of Brutus, the effing barber.
Oh, no. You got Booty Man?
Zodiac.
The highest of highs and the lowest of lows in one trip.
Well, Bruce the Barber, his main weakness is parasailing.
So I wanna leave you guys with this.
That it's always great if you can joke about Brutus Beefcake almost dying.
Yes.
And you can ask the parasailer for not finishing the job.
No.
Other than the hilarity of Brutus Beefcake headbutting the motor of a boat. I remember as a kid, it was just like, oh god, if Mark brings up his kid or his effing wife one more time. Okay,
or
so
the dog.
Or the dog. F you, Pat. Here's the.
That's 5.
I didn't say it.
4.5.
Here's my childhood memory. I thought about this earlier. I just didn't bring it up. I do remember as a kid walking through Toys R Us, and in the bike section there was also the ride-ons.
Yes.
Like the big cars, big electric cars that you could drive. And in my mind, they must have cost millions of dollars, and only rich kids had them. And I didn't think anyone actually owned one of those. And if you did, you had to be one of those North Shore assholes, on Long Island. You had to be living somewhere out in Montauk.
You own the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. We know.
No, you didn't.
I knew one of those kids. I actually knew one of those kids. He was pretty middle class. His parents just spent stupidly.
Okay.
But
I had the ride along thing as a kid. Power Wheel. I had the Power Wheel as a kid, but no USS Flag. But my Power Wheels was Chips.
Nice.
It was a Jeep from the California Highway Patrol who rode motorcycles.
Now, did you have like the motorized one, or did you?
Oh, the motorized one, baby!
Wow.
So I was convinced nobody ever, unless you were Ricky from Silver Spoons, no one had one of those things. It was just something that rich people had, if that. And that if I ever had one, I'd know that I'd made it in America. And a couple of years ago, not for myself, obviously, too big, too old, too fat. But my daughter got a Barbie ride on for Christmas. Nice. And I was like, I'm the best dad ever. She's ridden it up until recently. She's had it for a few years now. She rode it maybe 3 times and like gave up on it and just gave up on it. Now the neighbor kids like it, so she rides it more.
Okay. You're going to be looking at the space that it's taking up, and you're going to be like, why did I spend this money?
You're going to be. I already did.
He did that 5 minutes after she opened it. Now, in the 3 years she's had it, you said you didn't. It's not for you, obviously. But in the 3 years, how many times have you thought about sitting in it and just seeing?
Not that much. The Barbie car. I'm not. I'm not switchy like that. However, they've got a Batmobile now. There's a Batmobile, and a couple of years ago, I desperately wanted to get, especially when Jonas was really into construction vehicles, I desperately wanted to get him this crane that they were selling. Like, it was a bulldozer. I desperately wanted to buy my 3-year-old son a bulldozer, Ronnie Adams, and I couldn't afford it. Spent too much money on the Barbie car.
Yeah. You can sell the Barbie car. Maybe trade it in.
Maybe
my dad
was
a car salesman. But it's okay. One last Toys R Us story, because I remember going to the toy store. I think it was Toys R Us. I had just had surgery as a kid. I had my adenoids taken out, and it was kind of a painful surgery. I mean, I was sore throat, the whole nine. And my dad said, he felt terrible to see one of his, see his kid in pain in a hospital bed, but I was fine because I got ice cream. I was cool. But he's like, hey, man, as soon as you get out of here, tomorrow or tonight or whenever, we're going to go by the toy store and we'll get you something. I said, okay. He said, you can, we'll get you a Transformer or something. So I walked by, and I saw Autobot Hound, the Army Jeep, with a cool gun on top. Yeah, this is for you, Mark. It had the cool gun in the back and everything. I was like, man, I really want that. My dad was like, you can get that. You can actually get that. And I was like, you're kidding me. I can get a Transformer? And he said, and then I was walking by and they just released Karate Kid action figures. Daniel LaRusso,
the referee that's worth $1 million today.
Right. Johnny. The whole nine. So, and I stopped and I looked at the Hound and I looked at the Karate Kid and I looked at Hound again. I said, what about these, Dad? And he said, looked at it, he goes, I'll get you 2 of those. And I said, 2 is better than 1. I'll take Johnny and Daniel. And I could make him fight. And then I got him home, and while I appreciated what my dad did for me, and I played with him, I played the heck out of them, but they were kind of lame. I mean, you twisted his waist and his leg shot up, or you twisted his waist and his hand came down. It's like, I've never seen Daniel LaRusso chop like that, but anyway, and I think back, I was like, man, if I had just gotten Autobot Hound.
But I would actually be more depressed that I didn't get the toy set with the referee, which is now worth like $1 million.
Oh, I know. I look back on that, and I'm like, I look back at when Chuck Norris had his animated series
Commandos.
out. Yep, Chuck Norris and these Karate Commandos. I had several of those.
You know what? And nobody I've ever met in life has ever owned any of these. I would love to, but they all literally retail for a minimum of $150 on eBay. The over-the-top action figures, yes.
Oh!
The Sylvester Stallone over-the-top movie action figures. I know no one who owns them. They all like, you got to spend $150 for like a lamer figure, but they all had the ability to interlock arms and arm wrestle.
See, I bypassed those to get the Rambo figures.
Oh!
From the Rambo cartoon. Where he didn't kill anybody, but it was Rambo. No, I don't know, man. It was just, cartoons were weird back then. But how what was it? I was reading something today, terrible spinoffs. And they were mostly just cartoons, like Gilligan's Planet. And
Gilligan's Planet. Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
So they were marooned again, only this time in space.
Of course.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was a cartoon, man. But so that's my heartbreaking. Not heartbreaking. I still got some, pretty cool. They weren't lame. They were still pretty cool because it was Daniel freaking LaRusso with the headband and everything on it. So the Mr. Miyagi's bonsai tree on the back of his karate gi, the whole nine. But that was my Toys R Us series, Toys R Us story. My dad and my mom just get it for him because he got parts of his body cut out of him. So
you do.
we must assuage his pain. We must make him feel better.
I was pathetic, man. I sounded worse than I do now. But guys, I really appreciate you all being on here and talking about this. It's brought back a lot of great memories and a lot of good discussion. So we're going to get into plugs. Jesse, we'll start with you and just go Jesse, Pat, and Mark. Go for it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, go give the Rattlich in Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts that we have to offer here on the network. We've got comic books, we've got wrestling, we have MMA, we talk movies, all sorts of great stuff you can find on the network. We're at home on Spreaker.com. You can also find us on just about any platform for podcasts that you choose, such as iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio. There's plenty of stuff out there. You can find us and give us a listen. Got a lot of stuff, a lot of great stuff out there in the archive. Most recently, we did a source material. The most recent one that's upcoming here was our discussion. Me and Mark talked about Injustice, issues 1 through 6, basically, and we had a great discussion. That's coming up on Monday.
Sorry, I couldn't be a part of that one.
Oh, dude, I understand. If you sound half as bad as you do here, I understand. Trust me.
It was worse.
But yeah, we have a great discussion there. And what was the previous one, Mark? I can't remember. What was the one that released this Monday? It was
Many Worlds of Krypton?
That's right, Krypton. Which, ladies and gentlemen, I all of a sudden I've got to watch Krypton now because apparently the first episode includes time travel.
I knew that was coming, Pat.
Unbelievable. And I'm all Adam Strange and time travel, and Krypton. I got to check it out. So anyway,
and Angsty Jarrell.
Okay, all right.
Angsty Jarrell.
But yes, that's all I have. I turn it over to who's next, Pat.
Yeah, that's me. And if y'all look at your Facebook pages, you'll see an image of all 6 over-the-top collectible action figures with the arm wrestling table.
Oh,
that is what I want to see.
Nice.
Yeah, that'll cost you about $1,000 in total.
Dang.
As far as plugs, you can normally hear me Sunday nights on the 411 Ground and Pound radio show here on the Rattlich and Broadcasting Network family with Robert Winfrey. Unfortunately, I haven't been on the past few weeks. Some things going on, and not a lot going on in that particular genre of sport, so you haven't heard much of that. Gavin Napier and I have been trying to put a cast together. Gavin Napier gets excited, and then he drops out. Y'all, if you're listening, get on Gavin Napier to let's get something going here so that you people can be entertained by how mediocre we think everything is and how much we want to just poop all over everything and be the Statler and Waldorf of podcasting.
I have questions here. Whatever happened to the Casual Heroes reunion minus me that his friends were so excited about?
That's part of it.
Is that part of it or is that done?
No. This is on him now because he's the one who's reorganizing it. We did a teaser show that apparently got good feedback. And
what the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why it was never followed up on. I've asked, never got the answer, but
whatever happened to the Buckhouse Stampede? I enjoyed that.
He didn't want to pay for Blog Talk time, and I didn't blame him.
Yeah,
tell him to download tell him he can use my Spreaker account and use Spreaker and be part of the Rattlich and Broadcasting Network.
Okay, so if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, Casual Heroes were a really big podcast. They were really good. And they talked about, Pat, you were a part of the Casual Heroes. Mark was on there just about every week. Jesse, did you ever guest on there or anything?
I popped up on there I think we talked about movies one time, and then that was, I think we were doing sports movie lists or something.
Okay.
One or two podcasts, but I always listen to those guys faithfully.
Yeah. I wasn't welcome. But
we're going to leave it there.
But I mean, they had really good content, really good shows. And all of a sudden they're gone, which happens, life happens and you have to, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, what happens if we come back? And apparently they did come back, and we don't know where to find it. So
if you do a show and nobody knows where it is or how to find it or even that it existed, did it really exist?
I'm saying no.
Yeah. So if you're a fan of the Casual Heroes or anything like that, go on their web, their Facebook page, and let them know that you want to hear from them because, like I said, they did some good stuff. And
I promised not to be a part of it this time, and apparently ruined the show.
Mark, you were one of my favorite people on there because you actually talked about the stuff that you wanted to talk about.
No. I clearly annoyed one friend of Gavin. I'm never coming back.
I am here.
I don't know who that guy was.
I am here doing a podcast right now because of the Casual Heroes. They are the guys that I listened to first that made me recognize who Mark Radulich was as a podcaster, and then I became part of the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. So you folks out there have the Casual Heroes to thank because of my ass coming on here and annoying you just about every other night.
I can't say the same, but I did listen to them. I would be lying if I didn't say I was inspired by some of the stuff that they were doing. Kevin Smith actually was the one that inspired me to start a podcast.
I'm sorry.
I like Kevin Smith, Pat. Let people like things.
Then he wouldn't be totally Pat Mullen.
It's true. That's why we love Pat.
I'm done.
No, you're fine. But it's one of those things where, like, if you're putting out good stuff, and you got guys like Gavin, you got guys like Mark, you got guys like Pat that actually, that put in the work and put in the content and know what they're talking about. Now, the Casual Heroes, their wheelhouse was wrestling. And I tell you what, I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed listening to them talk about wrestling. We need a good wrestling podcast out there, man. We got a ton, but some of them aren't quality. We need a good quality. If I had the money to start a wrestling, a wrestling federation or whatever, to start a territory, I would put Gavin Napier in there. First thing, I'd be like, "Hey, man, here's a salary. Come run it."
Tell Gavin I said bring back the Buckhouse Stampede because Lex Luger ain't no cow.
All right, so with that, we've
wait. We're talking over it because Lex Luger ain't no cowboy, right, Pat?
Lex Luger ain't no goddamn cowboy.
Oh my goodness. So with that, Pat, we appreciate you. Mark, hit us up with 1/8 of the schedule.
You got it. All right, next week. So
1/8. You put a limit on your schedule.
That leads us into 2021.
All right, so this week we had a loaded schedule for you. We had the Many Worlds of Krypton on Monday. On Tuesday, we got a review that you could hear everybody on. For Pacific Rim Uprising. Robert Winfrey came back to us, and we were joined by friend of the show by way of Canada, Mr. David Wright. He likes giant robots. He likes monsters. He decided to come on and tell us all about it. Wednesday, Jesse, myself, and the Ramblin' Man, the Road Warrior, the Highwayman, the Dayton Man, Robert Cooper. No fun, Robert Cooper, because he's not fun time anymore. He's no fun, Robert Cooper.
Time.
Yeah, he's none time. That's the bit we did. None time, Robert Cooper. We reviewed The Sword, and I tried to tell everyone that God is in the Sea of Green. Go listen to it, and you'll know what I mean. Speaking of the middle,
You don't know what we saw, Ronnie Adams. You don't know what we saw.
God reached out and touched the world through that song, Ronnie Adams. And if you don't believe me, it's because you haven't heard the word.
Okay.
Speaking of the Middle Hammer of Doom, Jesse Starcher just uploaded a rebroadcast of our second Baby Metal coverage. Already has 1 million views. I don't understand how that happened. But check out our review of Baby Metal Resistance. We tried to put up the self-titled one, but apparently there's all kinds of copyright issues with that, and it is blocked world. Whatever I had on there was one of them was blocked worldwide.
Dang.
So yeah, but you can still listen to it on Spreaker. If you subscribe to the Rattlers and Broadcasting Network on whatever podcast app you've got, you can get both Baby Metal shows for the price of one. Obviously, this show, the Screaming Boy podcast, The Rise and Fall of Toys R Us, will be up on the Rattlers and Broadcasting Network as well. Next week, as I said, speaking of Toys R Us, it's all video games all the time. Monday, Jesse and I will be talking about Injustice, the first 6 issues of the comic book based on the video game. Tuesday, Robert Winfrey and I will be reviewing the new Steven Spielberg novel adaptation, Ready, Steady, Go, Ready Player One.
Loved it.
Wednesday, outstanding. Wednesday, we're going to get in the Wayback Machine on the Metal Hammer of Doom, and we're going to review the very, 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 very first Power Glove album.
Nice!
Metal Combat for the Mortal Man. We're going to check that out for you. And then Thursday, assuming Sean's not doing that Twitch thing or is awake
having
or anything, or having a Twitch, I don't know. Assuming Sean remembers his obligations to this network, we're going to put Tron on trial. That succinct enough for you, Ronnie?
Absolutely, because
Donnie,
I'm going to do a short Donnie. I've been called that. Ronnie, Robbie, Donnie, stupid.
Call me Joey. Call me Donnie.
Just don't call me late for supper. I hate that. Because whether it's by myself or with someone, I'm going to be doing a quick review next week of Far Cry 5. Far Cry is by far my favorite video game series. I've decided. Just went through Far Cry 4 again, and now Far Cry 5 has just released. And Far Cry 5 is one of the best video games that I've played in a while. It is based on, it's an open world, side missions, bosses, the whole nine. And you are a deputy U.S. Marshal who goes in to arrest someone in a militant religious group who has taken over this county and is basically kidnapping the people out of their homes, drugging them, and making them follow him. So it's based in Montana. It's the first Far Cry game to be based in the States, and so far it is magnificent. So I'll be doing a quick review on that.
Lex Luger ain't no goddamn special agent.
Thank you, Dusty. So
I just envisioned where that was actually said at some point in some kind of alternate history. Go ahead.
But with that, you can find Scream Boy on any social media. Facebook, just search Scream Boy Podcast. On Instagram, search Scream Boy Podcast, and on Twitter at Scream Boy PR. You can find us on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher. And the Ratty Lichen Broadcasting Network, which is on iHeartRadio as well. Very excited for that, for the network. And with that, I'm going to say, for Totally 80s Pat, for Jesse Starcher, for Mark Radulich, I am Ronnie Adams, and we bid you a fond farewell and have a magnificent day. We, as soon as I can find where I am on my sweet Lord, what is wrong with me?
Where's the
All
button?
right.
Where's the button?
Where's the button? We're out.
My hip hop will pop this shot. My hip hop, pop it, this shit. My hip hop will block this shit. Block this shit.
Really Solomon, yeah, you know me, quote, working from home, unquote, it's easy, turn a 2-day week and into 3, see, we be within reach, TXT to MST to BB, vibrations in my pocket, it's my phone, it's
The long run means protecting what matters most. At Securian Financial Group, we go the extra mile to understand the personal financial goals of our customers. We take a thoughtful, long-term approach to insurance, investments, and retirement solutions. Visit Securian.com for more information or to locate a financial advisor near you. Securian Financial Group. Financial security for the long run.